look on her face. Yeah, that was us. Didn't expect us to go down without fighting, did you? He appraises her for a few seconds and Amber in turn glares back at him. Finally, he chuckles. His laugh is warm and soft and instantly makes me want to trust him. My ally is not swayed so easily, knife still poised ready to attack. I'm just here to talk, Thresh says. His voice matches his laugh and I realize I've never really heard him talk before. His glances flits over to Rue, who's peering out from behind Amber like I am. You okay? Rue nods and goes to move, but Amber pushes her firmly behind her at the same time as I grab her arm. Yeah, Thresh seems nice, but for all I know, his definition of being nice could include snapping our necks to prevent us from a more violent death at the hands of the Careers. A few years back, 2 kids fed their 12-year-old ally poisonous leaves to spare her that fate. I cried for days. Thresh sighs land on Amber's face once more and he holds up his empty hands demonstratively. Drop the knife, will you? I'm unarmed, love. Well, I'd rather not even the playing field, love. Amber bites back, the term of endearment dripping with venom. I can tell what she's thinking. Thresh doesn't need a weapon to kill her if he'd really want to. He could probably kill her right now, for that matter, but the knife must make her feels at least somewhat better. Again, he only laughs softly. All right, then. Hold on to that. You said you wanted to talk, Amber says, slightly lowering her weapon. So talk. You looking out for them, he asks, indicating me and Rue with a jerk of his head. Amber narrows her eyes at him. Yeah. What's it to you? No need to be so defensive, love, he replies. I'm impressed, actually. That we're still alive. Amber quips, and now they are both grinning, the tension fading. Impressed you're protecting them, he tells her. It's not like you have to. Amber shrugs. I know I don't have to, it's not why I'm doing it. I get it, I have a sister back home, Thresh says softly. A moment of silent understanding passes between them. Amber throws us a quick look before focusing on Thresh again. You could help, you know. Yes, stay with us, Rue throws in, and both Amber and Thresh shake their heads at her suggestion. I have a weird feeling I get it. With Thresh, our survival chances would go up like crazy, true, but that means that the chances of it coming down to us increase as well. And even if we could somehow bring ourselves to fight each other to the death, adding Thresh to the mix makes little sense. Then we could just as well find the next bush of poison berries and have a snack. Thresh looks truly upset at having to tell Rue no. We have very different approaches, Rue. We'd hinder each other more than anything. That's not true, but what is he going to say with the cameras watching? That he couldn't kill us. That he doesn't want to get more attached to his young district partner. The Careers need weeding out, Amber states matter-of-factly. There's still 5 of them left. Thresh raises his eyebrows at her. True. But as I said, I'm not armed. Amber hesitates for a moment and then apparently decides that Thresh is to be trusted, because the thing she does next would be certain suicide if she didn't trust him. She slings her backpack of her shoulder and digs into it, pulling out the scythe and handing it to Thresh. Now you're armed. Do your best, yeah. And you looks out for those girls, he replies, weighing the weapon in his hands. I'd be annoyed at them talking about us as if we weren't even there if I weren't so fascinated with the exchange. The understanding, the respect between them just seems so out of place in the arena, yet so utterly right. Amber nods solemnly. Try to stop me. I wouldn't dare, Thresh says with a grin. He turns to leave. Take care of yourself, love. It's Amber, she calls after him, and he turns back to wink at her. Oh, I know that, love. He disappears into the woods and we move further towards our camp, neither Rue nor I commenting on the blush spreading across Amber's face. Only once we've all crawled into our little hovel for the night, do I break the silence. So, that went pretty well, huh? Did you see the look on Kato's face? Rue says. Who gets that mad? It was ridiculous. And she's right, now that he's nowhere near us his fury seems practically comical. Amber chuckles. It was the silliest thing I've ever seen. He actually yanked at his hair. Who does that? We laugh ourselves out, enjoying every second of it. We might well all be dead soon, we're not going to let the little things be taken from us. The rest of the day is spent with me assessing and treating everyone's injuries and having an early dinner before all curling up together before the sun has even set. When I wake up the next morning, my allies are already up, Amber sorting out our breakfast ration while Rue makes sure we have everything else securely packed. I sit up and stretch. Why didn't you wake me up? No reason to, Amber says, smiling. She hands me my breakfast. We would have any second, don't worry. Not about to eat without you. I smile back at her, marveling at how much there is on my plate. A whole apple. 2 slices of buttered bread, a smaller piece with a dab of honey. A small piece of cheese. A bit of meat. I swallow hard at the sight, my stomach growling. This might have been a breakfast for my whole family back home, and that wasn't even during the actually bad times, more like the mediocre ones. No wonder the Koreas never lose weight or strength in the arena. Amber even places 3 mugs between us. Now we even have tableware. The Hunger Games, where you can die in style. I stifle giggle at the ridiculousness of the moment. My eyes instantly widen at what Amber does next. Rue also stares at the liquid she fills into our cups. Is that milk? Amber nods, beaming. Just the 1 bag, though. No use in keeping it, it would spoil too easily. So we're having a feast. I'll say, Rue grins. None of us has ever had a breakfast like that before, not outside the capital at least. I never imagined that I'd say this in the Hunger Games of all places, but I'm stuffed. Then again, I never imagined I'd actually make it this far, either. After breakfast, we sneak a look at the Korea camp before making our way towards our cave. Marvel sits near the cornucopia, sullenly guarding what little supplies his alliance has left. The others must have gone hunting. Probably for us. Or, well, actually they are probably after Peter, seeing as they tended towards suspecting him of blowing up their supplies. And after the anthem last night, they can be absolutely certain that it wasn't just a would-be thief who blew himself to shreds. I feel guilty at causing my poor district partner even more trouble, but if they haven't found him yet, why should they now? And Fresh is out there, too, side at the ready. All in all, our survival chances must have easily doubled since yesterday, just like our sponsor rates. Amber and I are walking along, Rue in the trees above us. I don't trust myself up there, not with the added weight of my newly filled backpack, but she's as fast and silent as ever. We are near to camp and about to check my snares when Amber goes stiff, holding up a hand to stop me from moving. Her voice is barely even a whisper. What was that? What was what? I mouth back at her, but then I hear it, too. A soft rustling in the undergrowth. Before either of us can move, Glimmer is right in front of us, smiling brightly. Well, don't you have a lot of supplies for some outer-district runs? I wonder where you got those. Her tone of voice is light and carefree, friendly even, but the saber with the curved blade she is holding is something entirely not friendly. I should really take them back, you know. Rightful owner and all. Where are your friends? Amber says, clearly stalling for time, pulling her dagger into her hand as I fumble for my knife. Rue, up above us in the tree, doesn't make a sound. The Korea girl shrugs and rolls her eyes. Hunting bread boy. Waste of time. He clearly doesn't have the brain or manpower to cause that explosion and not die. So, what? Snaps Amber, her hands visibly shaking. Upset we blew up your hairbrushes or something. Glimmer actually laughs at that, a sound so uncalled for in this situation it makes me shiver. This girl, who could easily blend in town, who looks so friendly and sweet, is far too sure of her ability to kill us for my liking. And far too eager to do so. Even with it being 3-on-1 2-on-1 if Rue doesn't feel the insane need to endanger her life for ours, but she will, of course, I'm not sure we have a chance at beating her. Not like this. My mind is racing and I start slowly backing away, tugging Amber with me, hoping she gets what I'm doing. If Glimmer takes a few more steps, she'll get yanked off her feet, stuck in one of my snares. Just a few more steps. She advances, but then stops and frowns. What are you doing? Okay, so not the smoothest plan, apparently. Just one more step. If she just takes one more step. Fleeing in slow motion. I offer, my voice embarrassingly squeaky. She chuckles but doesn't buy it. Her eyes scan her surroundings and then narrow in anger. She sidesteps the snare. That's not very nice, is it? I'm at least letting you defend yourselves. Or attempt to. She flies at us and we barely have time to react. Amber somehow manages to block her blade, but the force of Glimmer's blow knocks her off her feet. I dodge Glimmer's blade as best I can, lashing at her with my knife aimlessly. Amber's back up and fighting, too. Glimmer deflects every blow, poking past our weak defenses, opening small gashes on our arms, faces, chests. Clearly just toying with us. Come on, you can do better than that, she laughs as she causes Amber to tumble down once more, remaining on the ground in a daze, maybe even unconscious. I deflect her saber just before she stabs my friend and drive my knife into the courier's leg. She lets out a furious scream and kicks me hard. I stumble and lose my weapon in the process. I back against a tree, my heart hammering painfully. Glimmer smiles at me. Silly little girl. Shouldn't try to play with the big kids, should you? Where's the other midget? As if to answer her, Rue drops from the branches above onto her back. She pulls at Glimmer's hair, rakes her nails over her face, even bites her. All she can think of to incapacitate the courier even momentarily. Glimmer is aimlessly waving her weapon, hitting my arm by sheer luck, then directing it backwards in a risky move. Rue screams as it pierces her shoulder but does not let go. The blade finds her a second time and now, she falls to the ground by my side. I pull her up quickly. We will stand tall and proud, not die begging. My hand intertwines with Rue's. Then, out of nowhere, a flash of red launches onto Glimmer. There is a sickening crack and the blonde falls down. A cannon sounds. Amber stands there, looking panicked and confused. Glimmer's neck is twisted to an unnatural angle. I let go of Rue. She runs and clings to Amber, sobbing. I fall to my knees next to the dead girl. Amber stares at her hands in disbelief. I automatically reach for Glimmer, brushing my finger through her golden hair. She's not much older than Katniss and she's dead. Gone forever. Her family must be weeping for her at this very moment. I think of the boy from her district and how close they seemed. If she could befriend him here, of all places, how many people are crying in District 1? Cursing us for taking away their friend, daughter, sister, cousin. I feel like throwing up, the feeling of my knife digging into her flesh still fresh in my mind. I look up to find my allies staring at me, Rue frantically wiping her bloody stained hands on her trousers. Amber is the first to pull herself together, even though she did the actual killing. We have to get out of here. I nod but can't bring myself to get up, focusing on Glimmer again. She has had hers a family. Friends. I place my hands on either side of her head and set her neck straight with a violent jerk. Amber leans in and gently closes her eyes while Rue wraps her arms around me. Glimmer looks like she's asleep, now, if you disregard the bloody track Rue's nails left on her beautiful face. I choke back a sob, reminding myself that I am not allowed to cry. The Capitol is watching. I cannot break down. I give Rue one last squeeze and untangle myself from her, getting up and forcing a smile on my face. One more down. We stumble through the forest, the Mockingjays falling silent behind us as the Capitol sends its hovercraft to pick up Glimmer's body. Amber has taken off her jacket and presses it against Rue's shoulder in an attempt to stop the blood flow. Even if blood loss wasn't so serious, we still couldn't afford leaving a trail of blood behind. Once they figure out that their ally has died, the couriers will surely want to avenge her, even if it's only because of some notion of inner district superiority and not because they actually care. Well, except for Marvel. I really don't want to cross his path. We reach our camp, crawling into the cave and collapsing. I reach out for Rue, who is shuddering in an effort not to cry or faint from the pain. It'll be fine, okay? I'll fix this. I just have to get myself fixed a bit, alright? She nods, closing her eyes and leaning into Amber, who continues to apply pressure to her wound. I wish I could tend to my friend first, but there's blood streaming down my arms and forehead, making my hands slick with blood and impairing my vision, not exactly letting me take care of a wound like Rue's. I scramble for the first aid kit, pulling out a needle and thread. I probably do a sloppy job of the cut along my forehead, but it stems the blood flow, so it's good enough. My arms are stitched up a lot better and easier, as I can actually see what I'm doing, even though using my left hand makes it strange. But it's not about how it looks, I just need a quick fix. I wash my blood off and wipe my hands dry, then turning to look at Rue. Amber looks ready to throw up as I expose the wound on our ally's shoulder. I cringe, as well. We don't have the necessary supplies to fix this properly. Boil some water, Amber, will you? She nods, pale but glad to turn away from the grisly wound. I inspect the injury further, keeping my face neutral to stop Rue from panicking. My friend shudders under my touch, whimpering in pain. I do the best I can, but it's not exactly the kind of wound you can just sew up. But I do as much as possible, then making Rue swallow a painkiller and telling her to go to sleep. I stitch up Amber's wounds, which are pretty tame compared to Rue's and rather manageable. Once I'm sure Rue is asleep, I get up and stand in the entrance of our cave, raising my face to the sky. Come on, hey Mitch, chaff. A bit of help. If they don't send anything, I'm not sure Rue will make it. Infection is hard enough to fight as it is, but in the arena, it is practically impossible. I'm already close to starting to panic when the parachute comes floating down towards me. I snatch it out of the air, tearing it open immediately. I sigh in relief as I open the small container inside. The strong, clinical smell tells me it is just what I need for Rue. I smile, looking up once more. Thanks, guys. I crawl back into the cave, applying the salve to Rue's wound. She mumbles in her sleep but doesn't wake up. Amber raises an eyebrow at me. Will it fix her? I think so, I reply, trying to sound confident. I look up at the older girl. Are you all right? You fixed me up fine, she tells me, and I frown. Not what I meant, Amber. I know, she snaps gruffily. She doesn't want to speak about what happened with the girl from 1, of course. Why would she want to speak about that? I crawl over to her, slipping into her lap and snaking my arms around her, nuzzling against her neck. You're great, Amber. You saved us all. You didn't want to do that, I know, but it's all okay. She chokes out a sob, burying her face in my hair as I continue to speak to her soothingly. She reminds me of Katniss ever so much. I imagine what my sister would feel like if she had been forced to kill someone, even if it was not only self-defense but also to save her friends. I imagine what I'd feel like. Thinking myself a monster, probably. No longer human. You're a good person, Amber. No one blames you. I still love you, okay? I won't ever stop. I feel her nod against my head, tears dripping into my hair. I'm fine. Her voice cracks, but I think she means it. Her arms tighten around me. I love you, too, little one. The sister I never wanted. You and Rue both. I laugh shakily, glad to hear her trying to make light of the situation. She also laughs. It's somewhat forced, but her tears have stopped flowing. Amber lets go of me and wipes her face with the back of her hand. You should probably get a nap in, too. I'll take first watch. We don't usually do watch here, as the cave is very well hidden, but I don't argue her point. If she wants to have some time for herself, she can have it. So I just nod and curl up next to Rue. I'm out like a light within minutes. The first thing I do when I wake up is press my hand to Rue's forehead. I breathe a sigh of relief as I find her skin to be normal temperature. Her breathing is regular. The only sign that something is wrong is that she is actually still asleep. More often than not, she is awake before me. But she needs her sleep, so it's a good thing, really. The next thing I do is turn to Amber, scrutinizing her face. She doesn't look well. Eyes red, lip bloody where she must have gnawed on it, hair on end as if she raked her fingers through it over and over. I gently put my hand on her arm. Hey. Do you sleep at all? Course I did, she mumbles, even though it's clear as day she didn't get a wink of sleep. I peer out of the cave. It looks to be about 5, no later than 6. I wiggle out of my sleeping bag. Rue could do with some body heat. I stare at her pointedly. Amber only raises her eyebrows. I give her the sternest look I can muster, reserved for patients being difficult. In the bag, young lady. She giggles and then looks surprised that she's still capable of something so simple. With a shrug, she obliges and crawls in next to Rue. I won't sleep, you know. I'm not tired. Now it's my turn to shrug. Just lay down, that's all I'm asking. And don't fidget. Breathing nice and even. Can't have you waking Rue. Amber looks like she's about to argue, but I cut her off. As of now, you both are my patients. So you're not allowed to question me. I don't question you about your physics stuff, you don't question my medical orders. She rolls her eyes at me but does as I demand, settling down and even closing her eyes. I allow a small grin to flit over my face now that she can't see it. I'll get her to rest whether she likes it or not. I busy myself with inventorying our supplies even though I really don't need to, I know almost exactly what we have. As I empty the bags and stack everything neatly in front of me, I start singing, slowly and softly, an old lullaby that Katniss will still sometimes sing for me when I'm sick. I hear a gentle rustling as Amber shifts to look at me but I keep my gaze on our supplies, even as she speaks. What are you doing? I only interrupt my song momentarily. Shut up and lay down, Amber. I'm almost through the song for a third time when I realize my plan worked. Amber's breathing is unmistakably that of a person sound asleep, lulled into dreams by my lullaby. I brush a few stray strands of hair from her face and lean in to kiss first Amber, then Rue gently on the forehead, my song coming to an end as I gaze at my friends. Here is the place where I love you. I regretfully wake them about 2 or 3 hours later. I'd like to let them sleep more, but we need a plan of how to go on and everyone, especially Rue, needs to have breakfast. I already comprised a breakfast suited to deal with her massive blood loss, helping her regain her strength faster. Rich in iron and vitamin C. After making sure she eats and drinks enough, I check on Rue's wound. It's a lot better, the capital stuff once again showing how amazing it truly is. I still take great care to clean the wound, apply to salve and rebandage it. I smile happily at Rue. I don't think we have to worry about infection much. This capital stuff is brilliant. I can't help but think that, if they just shared it with us, the mines would not claim quite as many victims. All those men and women Mum and I could have saved if only we had better equipment. I shake the thought off, tune back into what Amber is saying. Do you think the couriers are still hanging out around the cornucopia? I guess so. Rue shrugs. They still have the lake to guard, right? And they don't have a real reason not to stay there. Amber looks thoughtful. I still think we should check. Imagine if they have changed camp and we run into them somewhere we didn't reckon we'd see them. We'd be completely unprepared. Rue and I nod our agreement. We don't really have anything else to propose and Amber was always our leader, now more than ever. We're not gonna tell her no after she killed Glimmer to save us. Reaching the cornucopia clearing, we find the couriers there, engaged in a fight. Unfortunately, it is no physical altercation. Marvel is completely beside himself, raging about getting revenge for his district partner. Kato makes a huge show of yawning and rolling his eyes while Clove goes as far as laughing at the boy from one. Big whoop. Blondie went off by herself. Her own fault if she can't handle it. You let her wander off. Marvel shouts and Clove rubs her forehead as if this argument has been going around in circles for ages, which it probably has. Stop being annoying, one. We're gonna kill whoever it was sooner or later anyways. This goes back and forth for a while until Felicia gets up and wanders over to them. She's been keeping off to one side the whole time, looking both annoyed and nervous. She doesn't have her district partner anymore and, while she could probably take down Marvel, she has no chance against the pair from 2, so she has little to no chance at the moment. Keeping Marvel from getting killed right now is in her best interest, as it means him rather than her being the logical person to be stabbed in the back by the Alliance first once it starts crumbling. Guys, stop it, I'm bored, she drawls, putting on an exasperated expression you might expect from an annoyed mother. She looks straight at Marvel. Quit being a baby. We get you have a huge crush or whatever on Blondie, but being whiny is just embarrassing. Figure out who did it and slices them to pieces, if you must, but shut up about it. In case you haven't noticed, the rest of us have a mild case of the who cares. Clove lets out a snort of laughter. Marvel looks like he's considering punching the girl from 4, Kato just reaches for his sword. So we done. I wanna go cut someone up. Kato and Clove start marching towards the woods while the other two punch their right fists onto the palm of the left hand 3 times, then holding their right hands out to each other. It's something you see the inner districts do sometimes to decide who gets an unpleasant task, and Claudius Templar Smith calls it Rochambeau, whatever that means. Felicia loses, apparently, as she swears and plops down next to their supplies as Marvel hurries to catch up with the other two. We make our way back to camp, stocking up on food and water along the way. The courier's course took them in a different direction, so we should have a bit of time to spare. Still, even though we know that they aren't anywhere near us, we still jump in shock as the cannon sounds through the arena. Once again, I find myself begging fate that it wasn't Peter. My next thought is Thresh. On the one hand because I don't want him dead either, on the other because he's armed now. Did he kill someone? Felicia maybe. A few hours later, as the anthem plays, the sky tells me what really happened. The boy from 10, who somehow lasted this long despite his crippled foot, is out of the running. Are we sure this is a good idea? I ask, nervously gnawing on my nails. Rue shrugs and Amber continues staring up into the tree. Yeah. Well, it's an idea. And it's not entirely horrible. Right. Right, Rue replies, though it sounds more like a question than an answer. We discovered the Tracker Jacker nest about an hour ago and our first instinct was, obviously, to run for it. Then Amber made a comment about wishing the thing would fall down on the couriers and our insane plan started to come into existence. Right, I echo. And smoke sedates them. You're sure, Rue? Really properly sure? My friend nods, trying hard not to sound frightened. Of course I'm sure. We have them all over the orchards. We always light fires when we can't avoid going near. But you never moved one, I say, even though I know the answer. It's been going back and forth like this for a while now. Rue bites her lip. Never. Look, are we doing this or not? Amber demands. Before either one of us can answer, a parachute with a huge parcel comes drifting down towards us. Amber catches it and opens it, holding up a weird hat with a net on it with a blank expression that tells me she has as much of an idea what it is as I do. Rue gasps and snatches it, holding it as if it were the most amazing thing she has ever laid eyes on. Oh my god. They sent us Jacker gear. She looks up to find Amber and I eyeing her in confusion. Okay, just look, she exclaims in excitement, pulling the thing on her head and pulling the net over her face and neck, stuffing it in her collar. See. If they can't get in, they can't sting you. Our mentors want us to go ahead. There's 2 more hats, one for Amber and one for me, as well as 3 pairs of thick gloves. We make sure that our sleeves are tucked into the gloves and there's no gaps anywhere in our anti-Tracker Jacker armor. Once the fire is lit, we wait for the smoke to waft up to the nest, letting the Tracker Jackers stew in it for a while before slowly risking to climb the tree. Rue, who's the far better climber, has a torch in one hand as she climbs ahead of me, making sure to keep the nest doused in smoke. Then she hands the torch down to where I am, 2 branches below. I extinguish it as Rue pries the nest off of the branch. My hands are shaking as she passes it to me. The jackers are subdued but I still imagine that I can hear them buzzing about, just waiting to attack. Rue climbs down a bit until she is lower than I am and I hand the nest back to her before climbing further myself. This way, we bring the nest down far enough for Amber to reach for it, quickly stuffing it into the sleeping bag we chose for this purpose. I let out the breath I didn't realize I was holding when the Tracker Jacker nest disappears from my sight. We don't waste any time on congratulating each other on completing the first phase of our plan. We have no time for anything like that. The journey to the cornucopia is a race against time, hoping we can move faster than the Tracker Jackers will come to. Even with the Jacker gear, as Rue calls it, we can't be sure that we didn't miss a tiny gap somewhere in our clothing. We can't be sure if the arena breed of Jackers is somehow even more vicious than the Tracker Jackers in the Orchards of 11. We can only hope we make it in time. The Career Alliance must be weakened if we want any chance whatsoever at winning. They are the sponsor favorites, what with the star-crossed pair from 2. If either Clove or Kato or even both die through our trap, it would open up the sponsor field again. Our savings must be nearly depleted, I'm sure. I try not to think about the fact that we are planning a murder. 4, actually, if all goes exceedingly well. I wonder what Mum and Katniss and Rory must think of me now. Are they disgusted? Or still rooting for me? I hope they know I only do all this in hopes of returning to their arms, alive. I check for what must be the 10th time that I have a huge supply of the leaves they use in 11 to help with Tracker-Jacker stings. We reach the cornucopia clearing with the Tracker-Jackers still subdued, so our plan can go ahead. I'm not sure if I'm glad or horrified. The couriers are off hunting, Marvel is on guard. Rue, Amber and I exchange quick nods and Rue quickly scales a tree, moving halfway around the clearing up above. From where we are, we can't hear the rocks she's shooting into the undergrowth with her slingshot, but Marvels gets up, looking around, readying his spear. He moves towards the sound and Amber and I quickly dart to where the courier's supplies lie. The Tracker-Jackers are starting to wake, I can hear them begin their humming. We pull the nest from the sleeping bag carefully and hide it among the supplies of the other alliance. We cover it with one of their sleeping bags, hopefully keeping most of the Tracker-Jackers where they are until the couriers disturb their nest. A few lonely jackers have awoken and are sleepily buzzing around us. I turn to see how Rue is doing and am shocked to find Marvel staring up a tree, apparently having discovered her. I turn to tell Amber when a piercing pain flares up on my leg. A Tracker-Jacker found a tear in my trousers and took advantage of my exposed skin. I pull the stinger out, looking to see how Amber is doing. She's swatting at a few trackers herself. One must have somehow made it under her gear, as there is a huge, swollen bull on her neck. She's already starting to become rather unsteady on her feet. I don't know what to do, who to help, how to help. Rue is jumping from tree to tree now, Marvel yelling up at her and aiming his weapon over and over, but she's too fast for him to actually try and hit her. I decide to drag Amber into the safety of the trees first. The game makers are doing something with the arena, there's spots of lights flaring up and disappearing all around me, again and again. There's a high-pitched whining sound, too, and it takes me almost a minute, or maybe an hour to realize it is coming from Amber. We are still not at the edge of the forest. Stop moving the trees. I scream at the game makers. This isn't fair. They can't just take away our forest. Or is it not them? Have I already begun hallucinating? I don't know. It feels real. So terribly real. My hands are numb, my feet are numb. I don't think my heart is beating anymore. Or maybe I have two hearts now. What is that pounding noise? Amber is dragging me along but I don't think she knows where we are going. The lights are still dancing. Time stops flowing only to then speed up tenfold. I turn to find Rue and she's darting towards me. Behind her, Marvel is fighting someone or something. We're being rescued. Daddy. The word is foreign and leaves a strange taste in my mouth. But it must be him. He's come back to save me. Rue is dragging me and Amber along now, deeper and deeper into the woods. The trees are bending around us, changing colors swiftly, threatening to fall onto us. When Rue lets go of us, Amber falls face first into the dirt and doesn't move. There's a cannon somewhere. I think it might be mine. I don't feel alive. Yes, that cannon is mine. I wonder why I can still see Rue if I'm dead. I even hear her voice, but I can't understand what she is telling me. I really hope she's not dead as well. It's bad enough I died. Maybe that's why I could see my dad. He came and helped Rue because it was too late for me. That thought comforts me as everything goes black. I don't know how many times I have died and come back to life. By now, I realize that it is the Tracker-Jacker venom but I still can't stop the visions from pulling me under. Every time I watch Katniss be torn to pieces by Mutts, see Mum engulfed by flames, every single moment of standing by as my family and friends perish it's not real, I know it isn't. But I only know for the split second I am conscious between nightmares. I draw in deep breath after breath, waiting for the next vision to begin. Prim, a soft voice whispers. Prim, it's okay. I allow my eyes to flutter open, hoping that this is not some trick of my mind again and that I really am hearing Rue, that I really am awake. She strokes my hair, whispering soothingly. It's over now, Prim, you'll be all right. I try to sit up and Rue holds me steady as I wince in pain. Everything hurts. I lean against my friend as she helps me take a sip of water. I treated your stings, she tells me as I drink. There was one on your back I didn't find right away, so it made things worse. I'm so sorry, Prim. I shake my head. It takes me a few attempts to actually speak. No. It's okay. You did brilliant. We're alive, aren't we? Then I suddenly realize that I don't know that to be true. I vaguely remember a cannon. I find Amber lying near us, unmoving, and panic wells up in me. She's alive, Rue tells me hurriedly. She goes from completely stiff to raging. She tried to tear her skin off a few times. A few times. I croak. How long have I been out? Rue shrugs a little, as if she'd rather not tell me. Almost 2 days. And you kept us alive all that time. Thank you, I whisper, wrapping my arms around her. Thank you. Only now do I register how worn out she looks. Sleep, Rue. She shakes her head. I want to wait until Amber wakes up. I don't argue with her, I know she won't sleep. So we sit side by side, waiting for the venom in Amber's body to wear off. Occasionally, she has another fit, and we have to pin her down. I can't imagine how Rue managed by herself, she almost throws us off in her panic induced by hallucinations. While she is calm, or at least isn't moving, for she is most likely trapped in nightmares, Rue fills me in on what happened. When Marvel had spotted her, Thresh had come to her rescue. It was the boy from One whose face shone in the sky that night. And the other careers? I asks. Rue shakes her head. Still alive. I can't believe it. We risked our lives, we endured hours upon hours of horrors courtesy of our own minds, and for what? Nothing, absolutely nothing. They are still alive. I can't help myself, I break down in tears. Before I know it, Rue is in my arms, also sobbing her heart out. How can our luck be this bad? We only stop when a soft groan comes from Amber. We spin to stare at her and, indeed, she is coming to. Did it work, is the first thing out of her mouth. Having to tell her no is one of the hardest things I have ever had to do, and that includes everything that has happened in the arena. She looks so hopeful when she still believes we succeeded, and I don't want to take that away from her. But I don't have any other choice. She visibly deflates, but pulls herself together quickly. Well, it can't have been pleasant for them, at least. We'll just have to think of something else. And there's only 3 careers, now. I know she's just forcing herself to say those things for mine and Rue's benefit, and I appreciate it. Yeah, we'll get them, Rue says, and she even sounds like she might believe it. Maybe she's thinking of Thresh. Both her and my district partner have killed a career now, just like Amber. The inner districts must be fuming. All their casualties down to outer districts. Usually, most of them die either by Game Maker intervention or when the Alliance turns sour. We spend the rest of the day more or less in silence, eating and drinking, sleeping, trying our best not to strain our aching muscles. The capital must be getting bored, Amber says quietly at one point, her eyes void of emotion. We've been not functioning for days, neither have the careers. Something going to happen soon. Despite her gloomy words, she sends Rue and I off to bed only minutes later. We've allowed ourselves a full day of rest to get our strength back. Thanks to Rue, we're not in an all too bad condition, and she luckily also thought to apply the capital medicine to the wound Glimmer inflicted on her, which is as good as gone now. I'd like for us all to just remain in our cave a while longer, but we are running low on supplies. What we have either eaten or it has begun to get bad. It shouldn't yet, really, but I'm guessing the game makers designed it that way to mess with us tributes. Whether they did or I'm just off on my assumptions on how long the food should have lasted, we have to stock up on supplies either way. We're down to only 9 tributes left in the arena, even though we can't, not for all the world, figure out who's still around other than us, the careers, Peter, and Thresh. Amber says it's definitely a guy, but even she is hazy on his district number. Anyway, the dwindling numbers mean something is going to happen soon, and we are absolutely on edge as we move through the forest. Amber is certain that we'll have to deal with whatever the game makers throw at the remaining tributes, as we are the only alliance other than the careers, and Kato and Clove are entertaining enough as it is and have the added bonus of likely turning on Felicia at any moment, assuming she's still with them. She stops us every time she hear the rustling of leaves, only to give the various mockingjays who cause the sound angry looks. The birds are still singing, though, so I'm not all that worried. When I point this out to my allies, Amber skulls. Yes, because we can be absolutely positive that the arena has a built-in warning system. Gee, thanks, Prim. How did I not realize that? She almost instantly apologizes for her rather gruffy reply, and I'm quick to assure her it's fine, even though her words hurt me. It's not like I was trying to be stupid about this, I was only hoping to set us at ease a little. Rue quickly starts chattering about something random, and we're both thankful for the change of subject, even though I'm pretty sure Rue, too, can tell that Amber would rather have us shut up, in case we miss any sound that might alert us to danger. But really, unless it's the careers, danger will most likely just pop out of a hatch hidden somewhere in the arena when the game makers think it's funny. And I somehow seriously doubt they'd be nice enough to put bells on their mutts so we can hear them from a distance. Rue suddenly falls silent mid-sentence and I turn to ask her what is wrong when I notice it, too. The mockingjays have stopped their songs. Our respective weapons are in our hands instantly, Amber letting out a string of curses. We move together in a sort of triangle, each peering in a different direction and not leaving ourselves open to attacks from behind at the same time. I blink in confusion as a small, actually incredibly adorable animal pushes out of the undergrowth. It's a weasel. A fair bit bigger than a normal weasel, but definitely a weasel nonetheless. Are the game makers freaking serious right now? I'm clearly not alone with that thought, as Rue barely suppresses a snort next to me. That's it. The weasel chatters at us as if it were offended at our lack of terror. But this is the cutest, smallest, least threatening mutt I have ever seen. I'm not even certain it's actually a mutt. It might just be a regular, somewhat large weasel and we are overreacting. I'm about to suggest that thought when half a dozen more appear and they suddenly attack. It's a good thing I had my knife ready, because otherwise I would have had my throat ripped open. I barely manage to block the first mutt that comes at me, still too surprised to fully comprehend what is happening. These things just don't look like something that wants to kill you, more like something Buttercup would kill and drag home, upsetting me with his odd idea of a present. But these little critters are fast and there's too many of them and they have razor-sharp fangs. Within minutes, I have bite wounds all over my arms and hands from trying to fend them off and even some on my legs. We have managed to remain in our formation, so at least I don't have to worry about any of them attacking from behind. But I can hear Rue and Amber continuously yelping in pain when the weasels make it through their defenses. I don't know how long it is going on and how many of those things keep coming, but my arms are getting tired and my whole body is aching and all that keeps me going is that I can't die like this, not when I've made it this far, not when Katniss is waiting at home, not when I never even thanked Peter for saving my life. Not like this, I'm not dying like this. The onslaught suddenly breaks off and they all recede as if by some unheard signal. I spin around, panting, to find Amber falling onto her knees next to Rue, her face full of panic as she desperately tries to hold our friend's organs in. I'm frozen in shock for a few seconds, the sight of Rue's blood spilling through Amber's fingers somehow not making any sense to me. This cannot be happening, it just can't be real. It's like someone injected me with Tracker Jacker venom. I can see Amber's lips moving but her words don't reach my ears. Once I manage to break out of my stupor, I instantly drop down next to Rue, trying to figure out what to do. The moment I lay eyes on the gaping hole in her stomach, I know I cannot save her. But I can't, I won't give up on her. What do we do? What do we do? Amber asks, terror clear in her voice. Prim, what do we do? Your jacket, I say, and she quickly hands it over. I press it to Rue's wound in a fruitless attempt to stop the bleeding. I just need some time to think. I need supplies. I need something. Amber has moved around and pulled Rue's head onto her lap, muttering soothing words to her. I need equipment to atrophy some arteries, stem the bleed. I need sutures. I need someone with Rue's blood type. And I need time. I have none of those things. I'm screaming for help, I think, but I'm not sure. Who's going to help me, anyways? I work with what I have, which isn't much, until Rue grasps my wrist, surprisingly strong, and tears my hand away from her injury. Her voice is barely a whisper, but she sounds so strong, so determined. It's okay, Primi. Let me go, it's okay. No, 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 I'll fix you, I swear, I will, I stutter out, even as I grasp her hand in both of mine, leaving her wound alone. I've already let her down, this isn't something I can fix. It's okay, I was never gonna win, she says, somehow managing to smile. But thanks to you two, I made it this far. I made everyone back home proud of me. Amber is choking back sobs, tears freely streaming down her face. They're always proud of you, sweetie. And we're proud of you, too. We're a great team. A team. Not an alliance. Because we stopped being allies long ago, we're friends by now. And it hurts. I love you, Rue, I force out, not allowing myself to cry just yet, leaning down to kiss her temple. I love you so much. Love you, too, she mumbles, obviously growing weaker by the second. Sing. Please. And I sing the first song that comes to mind, pouring everything I've got into it, because this is the last thing I can do for my friend. Deep in the meadow, under the willow. A bed of grass, a soft green pillow. Lay down your head, and close your sleepy eyes. And when again they open, the sun will rise. Rue's eyes flutter shut and a content, almost serene look graces her face. Amber has herself under control enough to join me in the lullaby, her fingers gently brushing through Rue's hair. Here it's safe, here it's warm. Here the daisies guard you from every harm. Here your dreams are sweet and tomorrow brings them true. Here is the place where I love you. Deep in the meadow, hidden far away. A cloak of leaves, a moonbeam ray. Forget your woes and let your troubles lay. And when again it's morning, they'll wash away. Here it's safe, here's it's warm. Here the daisies guard you from every harm. Here your dreams are sweet and tomorrow bring them true. Here is the place where I love you. Just as the mockingjays around us pick up the song, Rue's cannon fires. I fall down next to her, sobbing and screaming. Amber is on her feet, tugging at her hair, staining it with Rue's blood in the process, and she, too, is screaming. It isn't, however, my wordless yell of pain, but shouts of anger. Pure, unadulterated rage at the capital. I can't make out all she is saying through my own sobbing, but I do hear some parts. Just a kid, didn't deserve. Sick bastards, just a little kid. I stagger to my feet and over to Amber. I need to stop her from saying those things, true as they may be. I can't lose her, too. I can't allow for her words to get her killed. I can't lose her, I can't. Amber. I have to shout her name several times before she focuses on me, eyes wide in panic and breathing heavily. What she just did must be sinking in. I wanna bury her, she chokes out. But we can't. We can't because they'll take her away and say they'll bring her home, but the coffins that arrive in the districts are always sealed and there's mutters that the dead tributes are stolen. I'm not sure I believe this, but I can't take the risk, if this might be the only burial my friend can receive. She's not theirs, not just some piece in their games. She has a family back home and she has friends here and she matters, more than they ever will. So I take a few steps away from her body and gather up flowers. Amber understands almost instantly and together, we bury Rue in colorful petals. She looks like she's asleep, Amber murmurs and I nod. Bye, Rue, I whisper. I press the 3 middle fingers of my left hand against my lips and hold them out in her direction. Amber gives me a curious look. What's that? I let out an almost painful sob before answering her. It means thanks, admiration. It means goodbye to someone you love. And Amber mimics the gesture, tears in her eyes, and then leads me away from our fallen comrade. I don't think either of us got a wink of sleep tonight, my eyes are stinging from crying, my lips bloody where I bit it to stifle my sobs. Amber's paler than I've ever seen her. All we managed yesterday before completely breaking down was cleaning up our wounds as best we could. We still had the Sfadroxil, which isn't strong but better than no antibiotics at all, seeing as it was specially developed for animal attack wounds. I haven't spoken other than to give some medical orders to Amber and she hasn't said anything either. We're at the final 8, she finally remarks after a while of us listlessly forcing food down our throats. All I do is nod, even though it hadn't occurred to me before. They'll be interviewing our families right now. It'll give us half a day's break, I guess. How so? I ask, my voice scratchy from crying but not monotone like hers. Where I have found a desperate anger inside me, an overwhelming will for one of us to make it home to Onaru, Amber seems to have given up completely. She shrugs. They'll be busy with interviews. No reason to make anything happen in the arena. You're probably right, I say. So what do you want to do? Her face remains blank as she answers. We should go find Peter. My jaw literally drops at the suggestion. Whenever I'd brought it up, she'd shot me down, and rightfully so. It's insane to run aimlessly through the arena. Amber must be aware of this as well, as she quickly goes to explain further. I'd feel better if I'd got you to him before anything happens to me. I'm back in tears the second the words leave her mouth, throwing myself into her arms. Nothing's gonna happen, Amber. Promise you'll stick with me. She buries her face in my hair, much like she did when we first became allies, hiding what she's saying from the cameras. We both know there's not a chance in a million that they'll let me go home. Not after what I said about them. And they'll do it soon, so they can concentrate on a nice and bloody finale rather than on getting rid of me. She only pulls me closer against her as I start protesting, rocking me like a baby. It's okay, Prim. One of us has to win, for Rue. And it's not gonna be me. So I'll get you to the boy and he'll keep you safe. No arguments. And I can't argue, because I know that tone too well. I hear it every time we don't have enough to eat, every time I go to put 3 tiny portions out and Katniss yanks 2 plates away from me. You eat it all, Prim. She's decided what's going to happen and fighting it won't do any good. And a tiny, disgusting part of me is relieved, because she's decided that I'll be the one going home, so I don't have to feel guilty anymore when I wish for the same thing. And on top of all that, I also know Amber's right. I knew it when I talked to Effie on the train and I know it now, you badmouth the capital and it stops being about whether the odds are in your favor or not. You're not leaving the arena alive. So instead of arguing, I sob and cling on to her. I love you, Amber. I know, she replies, her fingers brushing through my hair. I know. And it's going to be okay. She lets me cry for a while before letting go of me. Okay, we better get started on this. I move over a bit and she picks up a stick and begins drawing in the dirt between us. Okay, so here's what we know about the arena. The cornucopia and the lake are here, then there's Thresh's Field over there. We're roughly here and the forest fire was to the west. So I'm going to assume that Peter's somewhere in the east, but obviously a fair bit away from the cornucopia, seeing as the careers want him dead but haven't gotten him yet. She circles a part of her makeshift map. This section is our best bet. You ready to go? What I really want to say is no, because as long as we stay in this cave, I feel like we'll both be okay, even though I logically know there's no way. But then we'll run out of time, TZHE interviews will be over and the game maker's attention will be back on us. So I nod. We check thoroughly that we didn't leave anything behind and I can't help but notice that Amber makes sure I have all the important stuff in my pack: the medical kit, the night vision glasses, the 2 biggest water bottles, the wire and the majority of what little food we have left. I don't comment on it, but it's obvious that she's not even sure she'll make it to Peter with me. She has a point. Towards the end of the games, the deaths happen in quicker and quicker succession, as if everyone is getting antsy to finally have their victor. I shake the thought away, following her out of the cave that's been our home in the arena for so long. Grabbing a hold of her hand, I let Amber lead me through the arena. We've been marching through the arena for what feels like hours. Amber will remark on which district she thinks they'll be interviewing at the moment now and again. She suddenly chokes up, furiously wiping at her eyes. They should be in 11 now. Interviewing Thresh's family but not Rue's. They don't have to go through that because they are going through something much, much worse. I stifle a sob just as a parachute comes sailing towards us. We aren't in need of anything, so I wonder why Haymitch is sending us something. My confusion doesn't last long as Amber opens the container. I stare at the bread in Amber's hands, remembering how I marveled at all the different kinds in the capital, and I repeat what Peter told me. The crescent bread of District 11. It's still warm, Amber says, holding the small loaf as if it were the most precious thing she has ever laid eyes on. And it might just be. This must have been meant for Rue, surely. But instead of pulling the gift or sending it to Thresh, they gave it to us. Because we share the same pain, the same loss, and maybe they want to thank us for being with Rue, or maybe they want to offer us comfort and strength to go on. Whatever their intention, I resolve to somehow repay them one day. Not because I think I have to, but because I want to. Next to me, Amber holds out the present for all to see, raising her face towards a camera. Our thanks to the people of District 11. We continue on our way in silence, sharing the bread between us as we're walking. Suddenly, Amber holds out an arm to stop me, pointing at a spot only 2 steps further. I kneel down to inspect what she has discovered. My heart races as I take a closer look at the snare. It's Peter's. I'm sure, absolutely sure. It's one of the first Rory taught me and the same snare I showed Peter in training, which seems like it was years ago now. But I'm still certain. He was here. So we're on the right track, Amber says, a smile finding its way onto her face. I have to smile, too. I didn't think I still could, but I'm suddenly hopeful again. A chattering sound makes the feeling evaporate instantly. I slowly turn and there it sits, as if to mock us. A weasel, vicious fangs bared. We're past underestimating those things now, and Amber quickly pushes me behind her, backing me against a huge boulder so we're only open to attacks from one side. The mud follows, backing us into a corner between the boulder and a tall tree. Just as we pull out our weapons, it lets out another chatter, much like a laugh, and runs off. The game maker's intention becomes clear seconds later. Footsteps are drawing closer. He has to be round here somewhere, comes Clove's voice from the path as Amber and I duck. My friend's grip on my arm is almost painful. Her voice is barely audible. Prim, you gotta get out of here. They'll make them notice us. Before I can protest, a snapping sound is heard from the path, then Felicia cursing and the other 2 bursting into hysterical laughter. The girl from 4 stepped into Peter's snare, now dangling from the tree by her ankle. Stop fucking laughing. Get me out of this thing. Should we? Cato asks his district partner with mock meditativeness. Clove pretends to think about it. Oh, I don't know. I've wanted to cut her up for days, but it might be fun to see how she does against that behemoth from 11. The poor, trapped girl starts panicking, and rightly so. I tighten my hold on Amber. Maybe the game makers will forget about us. Suddenly, trumpets boom across the arena. They can't possibly be serious. Announcing a feast. Now. But it's not a feast, Claudius Templesmith announces, it's something entirely different. There has been a rule change. Under the new rule, both tributes from the same district will be declared winners if they are the last 2 alive. Amber is the first to get it. Go find Peter. Win, Prim. Win for Rue and win for me, okay? Just go, sweetie, go. She basically lifts me into the lower rungs of the tree and I scramble up a few more, holding out my hand to offer her some help in getting up. I don't care that she's not planning on coming, she has to. Templesmith repeats the announcement once more, tearing Cato and Clove out of their stage of disbelief, and they're laughing, and then she's in his arms, her lips on his as he lifts her off the ground, practically crushing her against him. In that moment, I realize that the game makers won't make them notice me because the pair from 2 and Peter and me are the only teams left. They need me to add suspense. Amber must understand this, too, because she allows me to pull her up into the tree. As she scrambles to get a proper hold, she, unfortunately, isn't much of a climber. Clove turns to the now frantic girl from 4 who is fruitlessly fighting to get free. Oh, alliance definitely over. I almost throw up as her knife digs into her former ally's flesh, Cato looking on with a disturbingly serene smile on his face. I fight to pull Amber higher into the tree, a thin branch snapping under a misplaced foot. We freeze in place, hoping that no one noticed. Did you hear that? Cato asks, and my heart almost stops. Clove doesn't even look up from the girl she's cutting up. Unless you mean the sound of this bitch not screaming for me, then no, Cato, I didn't hear it. I've almost pulled Amber out of sight when Cato turns around and spots us, lunging forward and grabbing my friend by the ankle. I grab her by her arms, trying to pull her from Cato's grasp. Amber slams the foot he doesn't have a hold on into the courier's face with all her might, the sickening cracking sound and stream of blood telling me she broke his nose. but Kato still has a grip on her and Clove is now also advancing on us. I'm screaming, Kato's swearing, Clove is readying a knife, aiming for me. That way she'll bring us both down. Amber sees it, too, and with another swift kick, Kato's grip falters and he staggers. Amber delivers another blow and he falls. Before I know what is happening, my friend yanks herself from my grasp and launches at Clove, knocking the courier down before she can let her blade fly. Amber has the other girl momentarily pinned and looks to me, no fear or pain in her eyes, only determination and love. Go, Prim. Find Peter. Win and make a change. Go, Prim, go. And as Clove flips them over and Kato gets up, I know that there is nothing I can possibly do to save her. All I'd accomplish would be dying by her side. That wouldn't honor her sacrifice, only one thing will, winning. So, nonetheless disgusted with myself, I force myself to turn my back on Amber and make my escape, flying from tree to tree like Rue taught me. I try my best not to listen to the sounds of a fight I know is already lost behind me and am glad when I'm finally out of range, the noises of battle fading away. A cannon sounds and I perversely find myself hoping it is Amber's. I know how the careers can drag out your death and I don't even want to imagine that happening to my friend. So I beg everything there might be that the cannon signifies her quick end, rather than sounding for the girl from 4, who might just have bled out already. The trees become sparser, so I have to climb down and make my way along the ground. I don't know where to go, so I just continue away from Kato and Clove. I freeze in place when I hear heavy footfalls approaching. Could it be? No one would run around like this unless they have a good reason. Like looking for someone. Prim. Prim, the panicked call reaches my ears a few seconds before Peter burst out from between the trees. His frantic gaze finds me and I barely have time to choke out his name in reply before he gathers me into his arms. I practically disappear in his hug, his strong arms enveloping me completely. I can't help but be reminded of when my father used to pick me up. I was much smaller then, but the comfort is the same. So I allow myself to break down in tears. My district partner cradles me closer against him, stroking my hair, rocking me gently. It's all right, Prim. I've got you, I've got you. You're okay. It's gonna be all right, sweetie. I'll bring you home. I promise, Prim, it'll be okay. He sets me back down, taking my face in his hands. I thought that was your cannon. I thought they'd got you. And I hadn't even found you. You found me now, I say, doing my best to smile. He looks so sad and guilty. He shouldn't, I'd have been dead days ago without him. We should get moving. My camp's close enough, he tells me, and we set off together. After a few dozen yards, I notice that his gait is off. I frown and indicate his right leg. That happened when you saved me. He shakes his head, pulling up his shirt a few inches to show me a bit of the jagged scar that spans over his stomach and who knows how far up. This was Damien's handiwork. Barely managed to keep my organs in long enough to get away from the careers. Haymitch sent me medicine, but I was still down for a few days. Soon as I managed to get out of hiding again, I started looking for you. I never thanked you for saving my life, I say, stopping in my tracks and flinging my arms around him. I'd be dead without you. We jump apart, startled, when another cannon sounds. Now Amber is gone for sure. I choke back a sob, instead following Peter further to his hideout. So what happened to the leg, then? Clove, he says simply. What he doesn't say is that he only ran into her because he was going around in search of me. Got the drop on me. I was checking on my snares and didn't have my knife out, which admittedly was pretty stupid. Then how'd you get out of that? I ask and he flushes red, looking extremely uncomfortable. I kinda punched her in the face. I can't help myself, I let out a snort of laughter, genuinely amused. Peter is such a sweetheart, feeling bad about punching someone so much smaller even though she was about to carve him up. He grins sheepishly at my laugh and throws an arm around my shoulders amicably. Well, as long as you think it's funny. Don't want to think about Kato's reaction when he heard what I did. Well, how would you react if someone punched Katniss? I ask teasingly. It feels good to just have a normal conversation and the sponsors will eat it up, too. We need sponsors to win, so we can go home and I can find a way to properly honor Rue and Amber. We keep up a light banter back and forth until we reach his camp, a cave similar to the one I shared with my friends for what must be almost a fortnight. Only once we are safely inside do I tell Peter everything that has happened and allow myself to cry until no more tears come. I wipe away my tears, letting out a small hiccup and reluctantly wiggle out of Peter's embrace. I'm okay. Let me see your leg, okay? He nods his assent, still eyeing me worriedly. I help Peter unravel the makeshift bandage he tied around his leg and lean in to inspect the wound. The cut is about 4 inches long and a nasty shade of red, slightly oozing pus. It's not good, but considering that he had a run-in with Clove Moyer days after almost dying because of the boy from 4, he's really not in that bad a shape. I sniff at the wound a bit, luckily finding the rotting smell many such injuries have absent. That's a good sign. All right, I say after I've gotten a good enough grasp on the wound. You heat some water and I see what we have to work with. You got any supplies? Peter hands me his backpack before going to heat the water and I rifle through it as well as my own backpack. Peter's supplies are kinda career-like, to be honest. Cornucopia snack packs, knives, 2 water bottles. Not much that's useful. There's the empty container of the medicine Haymitch sent for Peter's other wounds. I, on the other hand, have a few decent supplies. Gauze, ruse leaves to treat stings that should also work on infection, 2 of the antibiotic pills and a few painkillers. I can work with that. I thoroughly wash and dry my hands before turning to Peter's leg once more. After washing the wound, I use the leaves to draw out the pus. To my relief, it works as well as I had hoped. What's in the snack packs? I ask while I'm working, both to distract Peter and to have an idea how we're doing on food supplies. He thinks for a few seconds. Bread, meat, fruit, mainly. Ridiculous stuff as well, though. Things you just really don't need. Tea leaves, powdered egg, soup packs, honey. I perk up at that. Honey. Read out the ingredients, will you? He does as I requested and I grin as he finishes. Perfect. We can use that. Use it. Use it for what? My district partner asks. I smile at him. Your leg. When honey is diluted by wound exudates, there's an enzyme reaction. Basically, it has an antibacterial effect. Peter lights up at this. Really? You're brilliant, Prim, I've never even heard that. I wash the wound carefully once more. He averts his gaze from the wound. Do you know who's still alive? Us and Tresh, I reply. Probably Cato and Clove, can't see one of those cannons belonging to them. If it did, there would have to have been another one. If Amber had gotten one of them, the other one would have killed her. So with the girl from 4, it would have been 3 cannons. I ramble on to distract myself from the pain the thought of my friend fills me with. Peter nods, looking sorry to have brought it up. And that boy from 9, right? Oh, is that who it is? I ask and he shrugs. I think so. Not totally sure. After finishing up his leg wound with a honey wrap, I also give Peter one of the Sfadroxil pills. If the infection gets any worse it will be useless, but I don't have anything stronger, so it will have to do. We sit together and eat after that, chatting lightly about everything and anything. We must be out of sponsor money, Peter remarks at one point. Otherwise, Haymitch would have sent more healing cream. I grin sheepishly. I'm afraid it went to me. My alliance needed tracker jacker gear. Oh, and iodine and painkillers. He raises his eyebrows and laughs. Well, I guess we know who is Haymitch's favorite now. Hey, he likes you better, I reply with a giggle. I'm Effie's favorite though, and we all know who's really in charge, right? Damn, I kissed up to the wrong person, Peter jokes and I tease right back. As if you had a chance anyways. No offense, but unlike you, Effie can take me shopping once I win. But no worries, now you're on the favorites team. Hey, I might look good in heels, you never know. He barely gets the sentence out before we both dissolve into laughter. And for the first time since I entered this arena, I actually, truly believe that I will make it home again, with Peter by my side. So as I fall asleep that night, I actually feel safe and confident and protected. I wake up curled into Peter's side, feeling comfortably drowsy and warm. Even with the sleeping bags, I haven't slept this comfortably in ages, what with the game makers making it progressively colder at night. But Peter's nice and warm, even though he insisted on wrapping me up in his jacket when he saw me shivering last night. My eyes snap open in sudden realization. I am suddenly wide awake, wiggling out of Peter's arms and pressing my hand to his forehead. Definitely warmer than I'd like. He slowly awakes as I'm checking his heartbeat. Prim. Everything okay? Yeah, all's okay, I say with forced cheeriness. You're just heating up a bit, that's all. He raises his eyebrows at me as he sits up. So how bad is it really? Honestly not bad, right now I reply, because there's really no point in lying. You're just slightly too warm. But it could mean I was too late with taking care of your wound and sepsis has already set in. We'll have to wait and see. Peter nods, accepting the news calmly. I give him the last of our antibiotic pills alongside breakfast, hoping that it'll help. But if his fever gets worse, I'll know it didn't do anything. I carefully watch what Peter eats and drinks, scrutinizing him for further signs of something being severely wrong. Loss of appetite, difficulty breathing, lethargy, anything really. But he seems more or less okay. Then again, he was walking around on that leg yesterday, which should have been agonizing, so he might just be really good at hiding the damage. You have to tell me if you're not feeling alright, no matter how insignificant you might think it is, I command, and he promises he will. I can only hope that's true. We move out of the cave after having eaten, desperate for some fresh air and needing to fill up our water supplies. We walk towards the nearby stream and I'm constantly checking over my shoulder. Peter nudges me playfully. Don't worry, Prim. Rule change is exciting enough for now. And Cato and Clover probably are busy celebrating. I shoot back and he stammers something incoherent, face turning red as I laugh. You started it, Peter. I'm 12, not an idiot. Not all of us are dense about this stuff like Katniss. Now he laughs as well. Did you just call Katniss an idiot? In the feelings department, I guess, I admit with a wink. Hope she didn't hear or she'll give me hell once we're home. If it weren't for the fact that my hand is constantly curled around the handle of my knife and Peter's slightly off gait, I could easily pretend that we're in the woods outside our district. It's just like the outskirts of the forest, where Rory and I will sometimes sneak around, testing out snares and collecting herbs. Conversation with him just flows lightly and it's entirely too easy to just tell myself everything will be okay. But for now, I like deluding myself like that. No point in thinking about everything that could still go wrong. We're sitting by the stream a bit later, Peter applying cool cloths to the back of his neck and forehead whilst I wash and rebandage his injury. It certainly looks better than yesterday, but that doesn't eliminate the possibility of blood poisoning. Trying to take both my mind and his of that possibility, I decide to get him talking some more. I find it very calming. So, you're in love with my sister. How did that happen? I guess it was on the first day of school. We were 5, Katniss and I. So you were still a nickel baby. Katniss had on a red plaid dress and her hair, it was in 2 braids instead of 1. My father pointed her out to me when we were waiting to line up, Peter says. Your father? Why? I ask. He said, see that little girl? I wanted to marry her mother, but she ran off with a coal miner, Peter says. My jaw drops at that piece of information. Really? Are you making this up? No, true story, Peter says. And I said, a coal miner? Why did she want a coal miner if she could have had you? And he said, because when he sings even the birds stop to listen. That's true. They do. I mean, they did. Mum always tells me that, I say. Peter continues his story with a soft smile on his face. So that day, in music assembly, the teacher asked who knew the Valley song. Katniss's hand shot right up in the air. Teacher stood her up on a stool and had her sing it for us. And I swear, every bird outside the windows fell silent. And right when the song ended, I knew just like your mother I was a goner, Peter says. Then for the next 11 years, I tried to work up the nerve to talk to Katniss. Which you didn't manage, I tease. even though I brought her by the bakery as often as I could manage without even her starting to get suspicious. You knew, he asks in disbelief, and I smile. Pete, everyone who isn't Katniss knows. I can only make her look at cakes with me every so often. I was hoping you'd come talk to her. He pretends to be offended. Well, you could have given me a hint that that's what you were doing. I figured it was obvious, but apparently your arm's so as dense as Katniss. At times I shoot back, finishing up the wrapping of his wound. Back to the cave, then. We walk back to camp, the sunlight falling through the trees and Peter by my side making the trek actually pleasant. It isn't until we come by a field of flowers that I am hit with the reality of the situation again. The flowers are as red as Amber's hair and as beautiful as the petals we laid Rue to rest in. I kneel down to pick one of the flowers, twirling it between my fingers, the familiar sting of tears starting up in the corners of my eyes. Prim. You okay? Peter asks, voice full of concern as he gently lays a hand on my shoulder. I look up at him, blinking back tears. I never got to do something for Amber. Something to honor her. I'll do something if we get out of this arena. I'll think of something special once we're home, but what if we don't make it that far? I don't want to think like that. I really try to be positive, but I can't bear the thought of dying without somehow showing my love for my friend. Peter nods in understanding, a sad smile on his face. I know he, too, is thankful for what Amber has done for me and regrets her death, even if it's not for the same reasons. Get a piece of bark off that tree, okay? I don't question what he tells me, instead using my knife to peel off some bark, about the size of one of the pages of our herb book back home. Peter doesn't stray far from me, collecting some berries and flowers from around us, chewing a piece of wood. Then he sits down by my side, taking the piece of bark from me as I start weaving a wreath from the flowers before me. I know that we are putting ourselves in unnecessary danger, being out in the open like this, but I need to do this, and luckily, Peter seems to understand. With blacks and reds and blues, he conjures up Amber's face on the makeshift canvas made from bark. It's the most amazing thing I have ever witnessed. It's like you took a picture of her, I murmur as he hands it to me. My fingers trace the lines of his work gently, careful not to smudge anything. I manage to tear my gaze from the picture for long enough to carve Amber's name into the spot on the tree where I stripped it of its bark, placing the wreath I made beneath it. I go to place the picture there, too, but hesitate and turn to Peter. Can I keep it? I made it for you, he replies softly. You do whatever you feel is right. I nod, hugging the painting against my chest. I think she'd like for me to keep it. We go back to our camp, Peter tactfully busying himself with preparing food and leaving me to stare at Amber's portrait. After what feels like hours to me, but can't have been more than a few minutes, food isn't ready yet. I force myself to swallow my tears. I wrap the picture carefully into a spare shirt Peter took from the cornucopia and stow it at the bottom of my backpack. No more tears and mourning until I am out of this place, this unforgiving arena that preys on those weakest, those who let themselves be distracted. Thank you, Amber, I whisper as I set the pack aside. Goodbye. I force a smile onto my face as I join Peter for dinner. The smile's not for his benefit, of course, but rather for the cameras watching. Peter doesn't expect me to smile in a place like this. He hands me my portion and offers a smiley of his own. Will you tell me another story? I ask, and he nods in return. Of course. What do you want to hear? I shrug, popping some food into my mouth. Something happy. Something happy, he repeats, thinking about that for a moment. Okay. Something happy, coming right up. I was 9 when this happened. My brothers and ma were all under the weather, so it was just my dad and me in the bakery. I didn't get to do much at the time, even though Rai always let me help with everything, so I knew my way around. And then my father realizes there's no way he's going to manage to do this special delivery that's been ordered. So he turns to me and says, Pete, I know you're only a little boy, but I know you can do this. You up to save your old man's butt? I giggle at that and Peter pauses in his story to beam at me. So I say yes, obviously, and he tells me what we need. It's a cake, see, first one I ever got to do by myself, and the customer had very specific wishes. Use marigolds, my dad said, and I said but we always use saffron. So he told me the customer's always right, he wants marigolds and I went ahead and did it that way. And for the icing, I did marigolds and primroses and these pretty white flowers that I didn't even know the name of, but the customer had brought one so we'd not get it wrong. Katniss flowers, I interrupt, my eyes widening in surprises. I remember that cake. Dad splurged on a picnic in the meadow, cake and all. It was Mum and Dad's 10th anniversary and even though I was only 5, I remember the day clearly. It's one of my happiest memories. Peter nods, his smile growing even wider. That's right. So your dad walks in to collect the cake and only then do I realize is that my very first cake, my first solo project, will be going to Katniss's family. And obviously, I get nervous then, but your dad, he looks at the cake and then at my dad and says, that might just be your best one yet. Proudest day of my life. Tasted amazing, too, I grin, the baker's boy once again having managed to ease my mind. When I wake up the next morning, Peter is still fast asleep and doesn't wake as I lean in to check on his temperature. I pull my hand back in shock the second I come in contact with his forehead. His temperature has skyrocketed. I had really hoped to have been in time with cleaning his wound, but it seems I was too late. I place my index and middle finger against Peter's carotid artery, silently counting. His heart rate is definitely off, too. Not horribly fast, but still over what it ought to be. Damn it, damn it, damn it. We're down to the final 6 and with all we've gotten so far, there is absolutely no way we have enough sponsor money left for this sort of thing. If we did, Haymitch would have sent something by now, anyways. And I have nothing useful left to work with. We can't even steal from other tributes. We blew up the supplies of the only alliance with medical kits, after all. But Peter can't die, he just can't. We can both go home. He isn't allowed to die on me. Closing my eyes and drawing in deep, calming breaths, I push away the oncoming panic. Losing my cool won't do Peter any good. Focusing on the only thing that I can do, I busy myself with preparing breakfast, only waking Peter once I'm done. He needs his rest, keep up what strength he has left. Breakfast's ready. I greet, overly cheerily. He raises his eyebrows at me, obviously noticing something is wrong, but doesn't comment. Instead, he accepts the food and water I hand him and starts eating. Well, at least his appetite seems not to be affected thus far. After we have finished eating, he looks me straight in the eye. So level with me, Prim. How bad is it? I hesitate, considering talking his condition down, but I hardly see a point to pretending all is well. Not that he'd buy it. Blood poisoning. I'm sorry, Peter, but there isn't anything I can do. You're not in imminent danger of dying, but if we don't win soon, it'll get bad. Really bad. He nods, accepting this as if it were just a random piece of information. Okay then. So we should probably figure out a plan of action, huh? Probably, I echo. But honestly, what are we going to do? Thus far, my plan was hoping Thresh would off at least one of the careers before they get him, hope Amat gets whoever survived that and then, as horribly selfish as it is, let Peter kill that boy from 9. Someone has to and I know Peter wouldn't make me do it. Basically, I was trying to forget how much I like Thresh and that the other tributes are just kids like me and praying for some bloodbath-esque fighting to settle things for me and Peter. A girl from 9 won like that, by waiting everyone out and jumping the last 2 alive, when I was in my first year of school. They played it during lunch. It was a very strange conclusion, because almost everyone had forgotten she was even still there. But it seems that following in her footsteps is a far-off fantasy with Peter's condition worsening. We don't have time to wait anyone out. Okay, so let me think about it for a bit, he says, clearly stalling for time. Going after the careers would be akin to a suicide mission at this point. We are basically weaponless. Maybe if we at least had enough sponsor money for a proper weapon for him. He interrupts my musings by continuing to speak. You owe me a story, you know. A happy one. Well, you already stole my best happy story, I grumble. That cake was really good. He chuckles and I settle down next to him, my head against his shoulder. It's still very cold outside and due to his fever, he's practically a human fireplace. Besides, it feels nice to be snuggled against him. Okay, happy story. Happy story, not about cake. Oh. I know. So, for my 10th birthday, Katniss got me a goat. When she and Gale brought her home, she was injured pretty badly, some wild dog made it through the fence and bit her or something. But Mum and we fixed her up, good as new. So now I have this sweet goat who likes cuddling, her name's Lady. When they brought her home, she had a pink ribbon on and everything. I pause in my story to smile at the memory. Lady looked so adorable. And about a week later, I went to trade her cheese for the first time. Got bread from your brother actually. Right. He was very nice about it. I was only 10, you know, but he didn't treat me like a silly kid. That's right, Peter says with a soft grin. He always treated me like I knew what I was doing, even when I was really little. Well, he seems to be a nice guy. Must run in the family, I joke before continuing my story. So I got bread from your bakery and cheese buns for Katniss. She always says getting them is wasting money, but it was my goat and my cheese, so I should be allowed to get my sister something nice, right? So in the end, I had bread and stew and cheese buns and some goat cheese, and it was, like, this massive feast, not just by seam standards, it really was something. And I was so jittery and nervous, hoping that Katniss wouldn't get mad about this, but I just wanted to do something nice for her for once. But that doesn't sound like something the Capitol will want to hear, so I leave that part out. So Katniss and Gale came home from school. I catch myself just in time before saying the forest and their jaws just dropped. I was so funny and I was so proud. Amazing day. Sounds like it, Peter says, giving me a warm smile. So, what, Gale your cousin or something? He and Katniss do look alike. God, no. We're not related to the Hawthorns. I all but shriek, horrified at the idea of sharing genetic material with Rory. That would be so gross. Only after I say that do I realize what I just did. I'm ruining everything. I can't just blurt something like that out after mentioning that Gale's around Katniss Allott. I quickly backtrack. They're as good as brother and sister, though. Sometimes I think they forget they aren't. Oh, yeah, I know that feeling, Peter replies, as if I hadn't just jeopardized our best chance at sponsors. I have a friend like that, too. We used to play together all the time as kids, but we never played house chores. It just seemed, well, icky. Madge's basically a sister to me. I perk up at that, remembering something Rory once said. Peter doesn't even realizes how well he's fixing my mess. Madge. As in Madge Undersea, the mayor's daughter. Yes, that's the one, Peter says, eyeing me in confusion as I start giggling. Why? What's so funny? I don't even attempt to stop laughing. It's just you fancy Gale's almost sister and he fancies yours. Gale and Madge. Peter's eyes widen in surprise before he, too, starts laughing. Actually, I can totally see that. She does have a thing for tall, dark and handsome. After a few more comments concerning the subject, Peter playfully pokes me in the side. So, why are you so averse to the idea of being related to the Hawthorns? I don't reply and his grin widens. Oh, is this about Ronnie? Rory. I instantly correct before feeling my cheeks heat up as Peter starts laughing. Gotcha. Damn him and his clever tricks. You know, Peter, I really hate you sometimes. We spend our time with teasing and chatting and me checking Peter's vitals and making sure he drinks until at around midday, the sound of the trumpets booms through the arena. I'm on my feet and at the mouth of the cave in a flash, not wanting to miss a syllable, Peter by my side. It's Claudius Templar Smith and he's inviting us to a feast. Well, we're not even that low on food and I actually wave his offer away in indifference when he says, now hold on. Some of you may already be declining my invitation. But this is no ordinary feast. Each of you needs something desperately. We do need something desperately. Something to heal Peter's sepsis. Each of you will find that something in a backpack, marked with your district number, at the cornucopia at dawn tomorrow. Think hard about refusing to show up. For some of you, this will be your last chance, says Claudius. I turn to Peter with determination. Well, that settles our plan of action, then. No. You are not doing that, Peter says, gripping my shoulders, his face draining of all color. Prim, don't even think about it. You said it yourself, I'm not close to dying. Just leave it be, okay? Well, I knew he wouldn't like this, but there really isn't anything else to be done. What, let you die? Not going to happen, Peter. It's only downhill from here. This is our last chance to get you medicine. And everyone needs something desperately. That means the Couriers might not even be in proper fighting condition. It's our best bet to keep you alive. It's a surefire way to put you in danger, he retorts immediately. It doesn't matter if I die, as long as you are safe. I can't keep myself from snorting at this. Let's pretend for 1 second, for your argument's sake, that I would be willing to live with myself if I let you die. How do you propose I go up against Cato and Clove by myself once your sepsis gets you? Ask them nicely to come close enough for me to stab them in a vital artery and bleed out peacefully. Peter's determination falters somewhat, his grip on my shoulders loosening. We'll figure something out. I'll go. I'll get the medicine and then I'll be back to full strength and I'll take care of them, you don't worry about a thing. You can't run on that leg, I say. Not as fast as I can, anyway. Plus, they are pissed at you. They'd kill you on the spot. Me, I can get away. I'm fast and small and with Thresh there, they wouldn't even pay me a second thought. Except that I can't be sure Thresh will show up or that, even if he does, the Couriers won't kill me just for the heck of it. Not to mention the boy from 9, who is a total enigma to me. I don't even know for sure what he looks like. There is no telling what he will do. It's still insane, Peter says, slowly shaking his head. I can tell he knows I'm right, but he's still searching for a way out. If you go, I'm coming, too. There's no way I'm letting you do this alone. I nod my consent. Him coming along is acceptable and might even end up being necessary. It's also the only option we will both agree on. But you stay out of sight and out of trouble, okay? As long as I can do so with a clear conscience, he amends, still looking anything but happy. If you're in any danger whatsoever, I'm going in. Again, I can only nod. Now that we have calmed somewhat, I'm suddenly aware that we are still outside our cave, out in the open. I motion for Peter to follow me and go back inside. There, we sit down and begin to discuss a proper plan. We can't just run in, obviously. Actually, Amber had a strategy laid out for this, I tell him, remembering an evening in our cave, discussing this and that with Rue and Amber. And I think we should use it. It's our best bet. She had this idea: see, hide in the cornucopia, wait for the platform to rise, get whatever you need from the feast and run like the wind. Clever girl, Peter remarks, clearly impressed, and I just nod. So you'll be in the cornucopia. Where does that leave me? Outskirts of the woods. That'll probably be the best place, I agree. But we're too far from the cornucopia right now. We don't want to make that whole trek in one go right before the feast. We'd be exhausted before it even starts. So we move towards the cornucopia now, find a place to rest for a couple of hours and get into position, says Peter, and I nod. After debating with myself for a moment or two, I swallow my feelings in favor of being sensible. I know just the place for that. And so, after we pack up our supplies and restock on water, I lead Peter to the cave I shared with my friends. It takes us quite a while to get there, and by the time we arrive, Peter insists that I get some sleep. I agree and curl into his arms, as I have become accustomed to doing. You have to wake me on time. Promise you'll wake me. Are you sure you want to do this? He asks instead. I shoot him my best glare. Of course I'm sure, Peter. We're winning together or not at all. Besides, I can hardly let my future brother-in-law die, can I now? That would make for awkward family reunions, he agrees with a chuckle. All right. I promise I'll wake you on time. And now sleep, Prim. Knowing that there is nothing I can do but trust that he will indeed wake me, I close my eyes. I need to be at my best for the feast, and that means I have to take all the rest I can get right now. Outrunning the Couriers is no mean feat, after all. And that is essentially what I'm planning to do. All too soon Peter gently shakes me awake. I sit up and peek out of the cave to get an estimate of what time it is. We have at least another 3 hours before the feast, and it takes not even one to get to the cornucopia from here. Peter gives me a smile that I assume is supposed to be encouraging but comes across rather forced. His face is covered in a sheen of sweat and his eyes seem a bit glassy. They really couldn't have taken more time with calling this feast. He is deteriorating rather quickly. You okay? I ask, bringing my hand up against his forehead. I can go by myself, no problem. I'll be in and out before they know what is happening. Everyone will be too busy getting their own packs, anyway. He shakes his head and gets up with an almost obscene amount of effort. I'm fine, I'm fine. Let's just get going. I know this part of the arena better than Peter, so I take the lead, wearing my night vision glasses and clutching onto Peter's hand as if it were a lifeline. Before long, we reach the outskirts of the woods, where I will leave Peter behind. It's obvious that he doesn't want to let go of me as he kneels down and cups my face in his hands. If you even think anything might go wrong, you run like you've never run before and forget about the medicine. If someone does end up chasing you, get up in the trees and away. Don't worry about leaving me behind. Promise. There is no way I would ever leave without the medicine or Desert Peter to fend for himself, not again, not after Damien, but I know he doesn't want to hear that. So, like with Katniss on Reaping Day, I give an answer that he can mistake as my agreeing. I'll be faster than the wind, you'll see. Peter nods, worry clearly written across his face. He kisses my forehead quickly, pulling up my hood and gently tucking my braids out of sight, the light blonde standing out in the early twilight. Off you go, then. See you soon. See you soon, I echo solemnly, more a promise than a goodbye, turning and making my way across the clearing to hide in the mouth of the cornucopia. Hidden away from sight, I settle in to wait. My nails are almost gnawed to stumps when I finally know it must be almost time. I affix my knife to my belt. There will be no surprise attack now, and running with the thing in hand will bring more danger than anything else. I ready myself to make a run for it, yet still staying out of sight. No good in tipping the others off as to what I'll be doing. The element of surprise is my biggest defense. And suddenly, there is no turning back. The ground before the mouth of the horn splits in two and a round table with a snowy white cloth rises into the arena. On the table sit 4 backpacks, 2 large black ones with the numbers 9 and 11, and 2 tiny oranges ones. Really, I could carry one around my wrist, that must be marked with a 2 and a 12. I'm only a few paces away and still can't make out the numbers, the packs are that small. That means that I was likely correct in my assumption of one of the couriers being injured, as well. Nothing but medicine can fit into those tiny things. I dart out of the cornucopia, grab my pack, sling it onto my arm so I won't lose it, and run for dear life. I have made it only a few yards when someone barrels into me, knocking me off my feet. The impact knocks all the air out of me and I feel a tugging on my arm. I manage to grab a hold of the pack that my assailant is attempting to wrestle from me. It's Clove, which means Cato must be injured, and she has probably mistaken my pack for hers, which is the only reason she'd go for me rather than Cato's medicine, risking some other tribute stealing it. It's mine. I scream, wriggling and fighting to throw her off. That's my pack. Let go. She twists my wrist and her eyes fall on the number on the orange pack. She actually laughs at this. So it is. Honest mistake, 12, but while I've got you here, how about I end your misery? I'm clawing at every inch of her skin I can reach now, fighting as best I can while she yanks my head back to expose my throat. At the angle she holds me, I can see Peter running towards us, but I know he'll never make it on time. We never anticipated someone attacking me this close to the horn. Hold still, twerp. Clove sing-songs cheerfully. I'll only make it quick if you're nice and stop wriggling. Don't make me cut you up like that bitch from 5. I wince at the mention of my friend and Clove's smile broadens. What was her name? Amber. Well, you don't want to be diced up like her, I tell you. We practically minced. I never find out how that sentence was supposed to end because suddenly, Clove is yanked off of me. I don't understand what is happening. Peter's still too far away to have come to my rescue, what with his leg. I sit up in a daze as I hear a voice shouting, a voice familiar and at the same time completely foreign to me. I've never heard Thresh mad before. What did you do to Amber? Did you kill her? His voice is full of anger, his hands wrapped around Clove's neck, her feet dangling at least a foot above the ground and their faces mere inches apart, Thresh's scythe laying forgotten a few feet away where he must have dropped it. Did you kill her? So what if I did? Clove spits right back at him angrily, even though she must be running out of air. Her small hands curl around his much bigger ones, and while she can't fend him off, she manages to loosen his grip enough to breath again. So what if I did? Fuck you, 11. I'll kill you, too. Thresh growls as he fights to crush her windpipe, but Clove has a surprisingly strong grip on his hands and continues shouting abuse at him and dealing a series of swift, harsh kicks to his torso. I'm suddenly grabbed and pulled to my feet, about to panic when Peter's voice reaches my ears. Run, Prim, run. He gives me a shove towards the forest and, after making sure his medicine is still secured to my wrist, I take off running. I stop after only about a dozen yards and spin around, realizing that Peter is not following. Indeed, he is instead going towards the fighting tributes, or, actually, past them. He snatches up Thresh's discarded weapon and only then follows me. He waves for me to go ahead, but I wait for him to catch up, my eyes once again finding Clove and Thresh. She squealed like a pig, Clove yells, but there is undeniably a slight edge of panic to her voice by now. She must realize she has little to no chance of breaking out of Thresh's hold. We cut her up and we're gonna cut you up, too. Let you scream and die like the little. She's cut off as Thresh lets out a roar of fury and slams his head into her face. Blood is streaming from her nose and now she completely loses it. Kato, she screeches. Kato. I hear him shout her name in return. He's close, much closer than should have gone unnoticed by me, and I finally pull myself together as Thresh throws Clove aside carelessly to focus on the advancing threat. I turn to run as the giant from 2 crashes into the giant from 11, sending them both aimlessly tumbling about. Peter's heavy footfalls are close behind me and he yells for me to hurry up. I hear a swishing sound and Peter cursing. Clove must be back on her feet and targeting us. Indeed, seconds later there's the unmistakable sound of steel cutting into flesh and a yelp of pain from my district partner. I slow somewhat and look over my shoulder. A knife is lodged in Peter's arm and Clove is readying to throw a third. Suddenly, a howl of pain distracts her. She spins around to see Kato and Thresh struggling against each other. Both have their hands closed tightly around the hilt of Kato's sword, trying to bend the opponent's arms enough to skewer him. And right now, the blade is nearing Kato dangerously. All but forgetting about us, Clove abandons her pursuit and rushes to Kato's rescue. Peter reaches me and drags me further towards the woods as Clove flings herself onto Thresh's back, stabbing him over and over and over, in the throat, chest, face, showering Kato in his blood, drawing horrifying, gurgling screams of pain from Thresh's mangled throat. I'm glad for Peter's hand on my arm because I think I might faint otherwise. But with him there to support me, we make it deeper into the woods quickly. We're out of sight of the cornucopia in next to no time, before Thresh's cannon even sounds, and I know that they'll first get their pack before following us. And even then I doubt they'll come right away. Clove's sporting a likely broken nose and Kato is covered in blood. Not exactly what I'd call top form. Still, we run as if they were right on our heels, only slowing down a few dozen yards from our cave, making sure we aren't leading anyone towards our hideout. Once safely in the cave, I pull the hypodermic needle from the pack and inject its contents into Peter's arms. Then I inspect the wound Clove's knife left. I stitch it up for him, glad to find it didn't injure anything important. The medicine will likely sort this out, too. He only nods, suddenly pulling me into a tight hug. Prim, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. What are you on about? I demand, my voice muffled against his chest. Sorry for what? He loosens his grip on me just enough to give me an incredulous look. If it hadn't been for Thresh you'd be. Oh, is all I muster. Well, Thresh was there. So don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, he echoes. Prim, you went to that feast because of me. You almost died. Because of me. But I didn't, and that's that, I say with an air of finality. Now shut up and rest. Doctor's orders. Yesterday was probably the worst day ever in this arena and I'm glad it's over. The feast, Clove pressing a knife to my throat, watching poor, brave Thresh die so horribly, Peter blaming himself for the whole mess. The only good that came from it all is that we got his medicine and he found himself a weapon. But even the scythe conjures up painful memories of when Amber and Rue were still with me. I don't mention that, though, I don't need to give Peter more fuel for his anger at himself. His fever's gone and he is as good as new. Still, he looks rather miserable. I nudge him lightly. Stop sulking, Pete. I'm fine. I barely even have a scratch on me. You might have died, he argues. This goes round and round in circles since yesterday. I roll my eyes, not wanting to think about how right he is. Look, you and Katniss just name your firstborn Primrose and we're cool, okay? That actually draws a laugh from him. And if it's a boy? I shrug and grin. Well, then I wouldn't want to be him in school. What, you'd let your own nephew be teased, he says in mock shock, his eyes twinkling with laughter. My smile widens. This is the Peter I wanted back. Primrose is a lovely name, I'll have you know. If your son can't pull it off, I don't see how that is my problem, Melloc. Our light teasing is interrupted by my stomach growling loudly. Peter turns to check what we still have in our packs. It's really not much, and just as we're debating if and what we should eat, a parachute lands just outside our cave. Surviving the feast unscathed must have given us new sponsor funds. Peter retrieves the gift, which turns out to be a downright banquet. Various meats and vegetables, rice, a rich, creamy sauce, bread rolls and goat cheese. My mouth instantly waters. Well, I guess today is Haymitch's treat, Peter jokes as he lays out 2 portions on the plates that came with the meal. I accept my portion with a grin. I'll say. With only 5 of us left, 2 sets of 2, so really only 3 competitors, our mentor must want to make sure we keep our strength up. I have a spoonful halfway to my mouth when I suddenly realizes something. Peter, you and Haymitch will be my only neighbors soon. Oh, yeah. I hadn't realized. That a problem, he replies with a grin. I shrug. You, no. Haymitch. Probably. He'll never let us live this down, will he? I make my voice as deep as it will go. I kept you alive in the arena, kiddo, least you can do is make me lunch. Oh my god, he'll always be around. Ah, that'll be nice, says Peter, poking my belly playfully. You and me and Haymitch. Very cozy. Picnics, birthdays, long winter nights around the fire retelling old Hunger Games tales. Easy for you to say, you're the favorite, I shoot back, stifling a giggle. I shouldn't have said I like Effie better, he's so gonna get me back. Well, don't worry, he doesn't really like anyone, Peter grins. People just aren't his thing, I guess. I know the audience will enjoy our having fun at Haymitch's expense. He has been around so long, he's practically an old friend to some of them. By this time, they'll likely have dragged him out of the control room for interviews about us. I smile at Peter and he adds, but yeah, he's gonna get you back for that. Gee, thanks, now I feel better, I mutter with a sullen look that I'm only able to hold for about 2 seconds before starting to laugh. Without it needing to be said, we have decided that we'll wait for the game makers to draw us all together, no point in wandering through the arena as easy targets. So with nothing to do but let time pass, we just chatter on, teasing and giggling like we don't have a care in the world. In the late afternoon, a cannon sounds. We exchange a quick look. Boy from 9. Peter asks. I slightly lift my shoulders. Most likely. A few hours later, his picture in the sky tells us we were right in our assumption. Peter's face takes on a grim look. Well, that's that, then. It'll end tomorrow. I'm sure he's right. The capital has waited for their victor long enough. I awake to find Peter sitting between me and the entrance to our cave, scythe in hand, guarding me. He must be on edge, because guard duty is really not necessary in this cave, it is too well hidden for anyone to find. But I share his sense of trepidation. The arena feels different somehow. The end of all this is drawing closer, I can practically taste it in the air. By nightfall, at least 2 of our number will have died and whoever is left alive will be in the capital, getting brought back to full health. I pray that it'll be Peter and me, knowing full well it could be only one of us or neither. It is almost too much to hope that we will both come out alive of a fight with Cato and Clove. Banning those dark thoughts from my mind, I move closer to Peter. You okay? Fine, he replies with a smile. Wanna have breakfast? I don't think there's a point in saving any food. We dig into what is left over from yesterday's parachute, deciding to keep the last cornucopia snack pack just in case. We're both sure there will be no next meal in the arena, but you never know with the capital and the game makers. If I have learned one thing this past weeks, it is to expect the unexpected and see a threat in almost everything. The games are divided into allies and enemies, and the game makers are certainly not the former. They might just trick us yet. Once we have finished eating, we make sure we have everything packed before leaving the cave that I now have twice called home in this inhospitable environment. We will not be returning to it. The arena, which had been getting progressively cooler, is now almost unbearably hot, the air sticky and uncomfortable to breathe. They truly must want it finished today if they are making things so unpleasant for us. As we move through the trees, my hold on my knife tightens, Peter holding his scythe with a grim look on his face. My heart pounds in my throat. One way or another, I will leave this place today. We go to the stream first to fill our water supplies, only to find that the water has disappeared. Not even a little damp. They must have drained it while we slept, says Peter, kneeling down to touch the earth. The lake. That's where they want us to go. Maybe the ponds still have some water, I say hopefully. We can check, he says, but he's just humoring me. I'm humoring myself because I know what I'll find when we go to one of the ponds I have seen around with Rue and Amber. A dusty, gaping mouth of a hole. But we make the trip anyway just to confirm what we already know. You're right. They are driving us to the lake, I say. Where there's no cover. Where they are guaranteed a bloody fight to the death with nothing to block their view. Do you want to go straight away or wait until the water's tapped out? The choice is taken away from us when a wolf comes crashing through the trees towards us. It's not much bigger than a regular wolf, but it is definitely a mutation, because no natural wolf has reddish, curly hair and no natural wolf shows its fangs in something so akin to a smirk. Peter swings his scythe and it lets out what can only be described as a scream, falling back and scrambling to evade Peter's blade. But then the rest of its pack breaks through the trees and they are much bigger and there is at least half a dozen and then we're running for dear life. Even though we are smaller and nimbler, not hindered by the trees as much, the mutations are gaining on us quickly. My lung feels as if it might tear, my legs are screaming in pain, my mind is clouded with panic. How are we going to outrun these things? And where can we even run to? Suddenly, Peter slings me over his shoulder in one swift movement, picking up his speed even with the added weight. Hanging over his shoulder the way I am, I finally unfortunately get a closer look at the mutations. Their teeth are deadly, their claws long and sharp. But what really frightens the living daylights out of me are their eyes. Those are not the eyes of wolves. Those are human eyes. I can't help myself when I start screaming at the sight of the red wolf with the sky blue eyes, the little collar around its neck clearly marked with a 5. It's Amber. And the blonde mutation that seems to be the pack's leader can only be Glimmer. It's them, Peter. It's the dead, it's the dead. My voice is shrill with panic and I'm sure I make no sense to him, but he somehow manages to run even faster. He stumbles into a clearing with the mutations still hot on our heels, the cornucopia clearing. They wanted us here, surely the wolves will back off now. But no such luck, they only pick up speed now that there are no longer trees in their way. I crane my neck to see where Peter is going. What I see instead is Cato and Clove coming out of the woods across the clearing, what must be a dozen more mutations following under, yipping and howling. Grab a hold of the horn, Peter suddenly shouts, and then I'm soaring through the air before smacking into something solid. I clutch onto the cornucopia, scramble a bit higher and turn to help Peter climb up as well. The mutations are nipping at his heels, but I manage to get him onto the golden horn. Seconds later, Cato and Clove scramble up as well. They don't even pay us any attention. Clove's leg is torn open where a mut must have bitten her, blood gushing over the golden metal as Cato half drags, half carries her further away from both the edge of the horn and Peter and I. My district partner uses the opportunity to catch his breath, doubling over and wheezing and coughing. My eyes frantically jump from the mutations to the careers, making sure that neither are closing in on us. Cato is tearing off one part of his shirt to make a lash-up tourniquet for Clove, so the wolf mutts, who are jumping and snarling and scratching at the metal, are clearly the bigger problem right now. I help Peter to his feet and we move farther from the edge, higher up towards the careers, warily eyeing the mutts. Can they climb? Clove suddenly asks. Can those things climb up here? There is a moment where all four of us are frozen in horror at the thought, and then Cato pulls his sword. Let's not take the time to find out. It is clear that he intends to kill us before the mutts find a way onto the cornucopia. It's a sensible idea, really, because if I really were to die, I'd rather at his hand than torn to shreds by wolves. But Peter will allow neither to happen. In the blink of an eye, he and Cato are upon each other, scythe and sword clashing fiercely. Peter fights well and holds his own for quite some time, but in the end, he is no match for a trained career. Cato knocks his weapon from his and prepares for the final strike. For once, it's my turn to do something reckless. For once, I'll be the one to give myself to save a friend. Without consciously deciding to do it, I hurl myself at Cato, my shoulder colliding with his ribcage. I don't weigh much, but the surprise and the speed of the impact are enough to make Cato stagger, which, on the curved, smooth metal we're on, is in turn enough to make him stumble and crash over the edge of the cornucopia. I, too, lose my footing, sure to fall among the mutts after him, when suddenly, I'm yanked back by the back of my jacket. Peter's panting heavily, his eyes wide in panic. Never do anything like that again. He sets me back on my feet, both of us turning to Clove. She's leaning over the edge of the cornucopia, frantically screaming her district partner's name. I've got it, Clove, he yells back. I've got it, I've. He breaks off with a scream of pain and suddenly, Clove jumps off the cornucopia to join her district partner, still shouting his name, a knife in each hand. Peter and I move as one to look over the edge of the metal horn, not quite comprehending what just happened. Clove can't believe that the two of them have even the slightest chance at fending off the mutts. There's just too many of them and they do not die easily. But there they are, back to back, fighting against the rabbit horde with all their might, slashing and stabbing the wolves, yet hopelessly outnumbered. The mutts break through their defenses again and soon, the couriers will be too weak, too exhausted to fight back any longer. I can't avert my eyes, a kind of horrified fascination having gripped my entire being. Peter, next to me, seems to be unable to look away as well. Plan B. Clove suddenly shouts and, after a moment's hesitation, Cato echoes in agreeance. Plan B. Their left hands link, as if to reassure the other that they are not alone, and then, something strange happens. Both Cato and Clove throw aside their weapons, the mutts briefly stopping their onslaught in confusion as the couriers dig into their pockets, each drawing forth a handful of innocent berries. But when they pop them into their mouths and two cannons sound mere seconds later, I realize that the berries were not so innocent after all. A chill spreads through my body and I hide my face against Peter's shoulder. Even with everything else that has happened, the sight of the couriers dying is too much to take. If I had any doubts about their feelings before, I don't anymore. Clove chose death by Cato's side over leaving him to his fate, over a life without him. Peter's shaking, his voice weak and hollow as he speaks. We've won, Prim. We're going home. A hole opens in the plain and as if on cue, the remaining mutts bound into it, disappearing as the earth closes above them. We wait, for the hovercraft to take the bodies of the pair from two, for the trumpets of victory that should follow, but nothing happens. Panic rises in my chest. What's happening? What's happening? There should be no delay. Should there? I try to recall what usually happens, but all that comes to mind is Claudius Templis Mitha's voice, and he isn't announcing our victory. Something is wrong. Maybe we have to get away from the bodies, Peter offers uncertainly. We do exactly that, moving towards the lake and away from the cornucopia. The hovercraft comes and collects Cato and Clove. Still, there are no trumpets. Then, suddenly, Claudius Templis Mitha's voice booms into the arena. Greetings to the final contestants of the 74th Hunger Games. The earlier revision has been revoked. Closer examination of the rule book has disclosed that only one winner may be allowed, he says. Good luck and may the odds be ever in your favor. I barely understand what he is trying to tell me, looking to Peter for an explanation. Grief is written all over his face. I'm so sorry, Prim. His hand coming towards me is the last thing I see before all goes black. All of Panem stares at their screens in confusion, not quite comprehending what is playing out before their eyes as little Primrose Everdeen of District 12 crumbles to the ground. Confusion turns into horrified amazement as Peter Melek draws a knife and turns it on himself. He is slowly bleeding out on the ground, almost gone when his young district partner comes to, sitting up slowly, dazed and confused. The second her eyes find Peter, she understands and is by his side in the blink of an eye, assessing his wound, slender fingers instantly covered in his blood. "No, no, no, please, no," she mutters, tears flowing freely down her cheeks. In an instant, she's on her feet again and screaming up at the sky, at the Capitol, at anyone who'll listen. "You can't do this. You can't, you promised." She stomps her feet and cries and shouts like the little girl she is, and suddenly, no one can see her for anything else but that. She's a child, a little, innocent child, and they sent her to this place to die, that she didn't just a coincidence and the sacrifices of her friends. She is innocent and young, and her pain touches even the most calloused of hearts. Betting slips fall from hands inlaid with gemstones, glasses are set aside in disgust, and someone sobs in the game maker's control room. An uproar goes through District 11. They lost their own little girl, and young Primrose just reminds them of not only Sweet Rue, but Thresh, and all the children taken before them. "2 victors, you said?" Prim screeches. She believed them, she really did. Even after weeks spent in the games, she's too young and too soft and too gentle to understand quite how cruel the world can be. She had believed that they would stand by their word, and only now does she understand why the star-crossed lovers of District 2 arrived with those berries in their pockets. They were astute enough to realize that capital promises are like capital porcelain, pretty to look at but too easily broken. The girl falls back to her knees at Peter's side, attempting to stem the bleed. "You can't have him. Not him too. You took enough from me." Never knowing that they moved in unison, both the citizens of District 5 and 11 turned to smash everything capital in a display of solidarity for the young girl who allied with and befriended the children of their own they were forced to watch die. They are ready to take on the peacekeepers, only to find that they aren't standing against them. Many of them are from 2 and still too stunned from what happened to their tributes, 2 promising youngsters, so painfully obviously in love. On thousands and thousands screens across the nation, Primrose Everdeen is still begging for Peter Melek's life, growing angrier and more desperate with every passing second. "We were supposed to go home together." She freezes, suddenly, as if her own words reminded her of something. "Together, or not at all." The soft whisper brings forth a thunderous silence, for some in understanding, for others in confusion. Her intentions become clear when she fumbles for her knife, pressing it against her own throat and declaring, louder and more confident, "Together or not at all." For a moment, nothing happens, and just as her shaking hand nicks the skin of her neck, a cannon sounds. She drops the knife, confusion written all over her features. "What? He can't be." The blaring of the trumpets drowns out her words, and Claudius Templar Smith's voice fills the arena. "Ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to present the victor of the 74th Annual Hunger Games, Primrose Everdeen of District 12. The hovercraft appears overhead, and Primrose knows that her time in the arena has finally come to a close. Lifting 3 fingers to her mouth and then holding them out to the boy who sacrificed his life for hers, she sings out 4 soft notes before taking a hold of the ladder that drops to collect her. All around Panem, the people echo her tune. Not only in the districts, but in every capital home and club and school and office. As Primrose is lifted out of sight, letters flash across the screens. Victor of the 74th Annual Hunger Games. Primrose Everdeen. District 12. Age, 12. Kills, 0. They must have given me something, because next thing I know, I wake up in a strange room that smells strongly of antiseptic. I slowly lift an arm before my face, finding my skin clean and smooth, the scars from fangs and claws of those weasel mutts having disappeared. The sight of my flawless skin makes me angry. Rue and Amber and Peter all died, and so did 20 other children, and they think they can just wipe every trace of it away. Just pretend it never happened. I try to get out of bed, only to find that I am tied down. Panic rises in my chest. I've made them angry, they're not letting me go home. They'll kill me. They'll kill me, too. A portion of the wall slides open and I'm sure they've arrived to finish me off, but it's just the serving girl that was around the penthouse as well. She brings me food, which I refuse to acknowledge. But she lifts the spoon to my mouth with a pleading look on her face and I can't help but give in. Who knows what would happen to her if their Victor starved under her care. So I allow her to feed me. She brushes her fingers gently against my cheek before she leaves and I decide to trust her. She comes again and again to bring me food, and finally, I think to ask her name. She pulls a small notebook from a pocket and scribbles Lavinia onto a page. I'm about to ask why she doesn't just tell me when the wall slides open again. Lavinia hastily bows and flees the room, and in comes Effie. I'm wrapped into her arms before I can even think about what to say. Oh, Prim, I'm ever so glad to see you again. They wouldn't let me, and I'd still not be here if Celeste she breaks of mid-sentence. Well, never you mind. I'm here now. She hugs me tighter against her and I in turn cling on to her as if my life depended on it. You'll get to leave very soon, dear, just a few final checkups she tells me before burying her face in my hair, her voice dropping so low I barely hear it. They're not happy with you, or with how the game's ended. 3 suicides is hardly a finale. And the things you said. Having nowhere to hide my face, I pretend she told me something pleasant, forcing a smile on my face. So you're going to be thankful to the Capitol and a sweet little girl no one could see as a threat, she finishes before pulling back, her radiant smile still perfectly in place. Oh, I can't wait to see what Cinna has designed for you. I smile back at her, but by the look in her eyes I know she is about to say something about Peter and I'm just not ready to hear it, so I cut her off. The Avoxes, are they not allowed to speak to me? This, for some reason, makes Effie's smile freeze. Darling, do you know what Avoxes are? Servants, I say, and she raises her eyebrows. And what? I ask. So she tells me, and I really wish I hadn't asked. When Lavinia comes in next, I make sure to give her hand a quick, sympathetic squeeze that I hope the cameras won't catch and receive a sad smile in return. Later, I am indeed released from this unwelcoming room. I step out and see my team waiting in a big chamber at the end of the hall. I can't help myself, I run towards them as fast as my legs will carry me. I fling myself into Haymitch's arms first, then hug Cinna before turning to Portia. I'm so sorry about Peter. We say it at the same time, and then we're embracing and crying until Haymitch clears his throat. Go on with Cinna, dear. He has to get you ready, says Effie, giving me a quick peck on the forehead before I leave. I'm taken back to my old room in the training center where my prep team gets me ready after greeting me with hugs and tears and kisses. They must not have thought they'd see me again and are beyond delighted to find themselves mistaken. I allow myself a few tears as well. When Cinna comes in with my dress and pulls it over my head, I realize that I am still the girl on fire. The sheer fabric softly glows. Even the slight movement in the air sends a ripple up my body. By comparison, the chariot costume seems garish, the interview dress too contrived. In this dress, I give the illusion of wearing candlelight. Do you like it? Cinna asks gently and I can only nod, looking away from the fabric and into the mirror to see myself whole. A little girl looks back at me. She has my eyes, my hair, my face, but she can't possibly be any older than 10, if even that. I give him a questioning look. What happened to making me look old enough to win? Ah, but you've already won, he says, a twinkle in his eyes. No more looking older. I accept it with a nod, sensing that there's much more to it. It probably has to do with Effie's warning as well. We take the elevator to the level where we trained. It's customary for the victor and his or her support team to rise from beneath the stage. First the prep team, followed by the escort, the stylist, the mentor, and finally the victor. Cinna and the prep team peel off to change into their own costumes and take their positions, leaving me alone. The rumbling of the crowd is loud, so I don't notice Haymitch until he touches my shoulder. I spring away, startled, still half in the arena, I guess. Don't you look adorable, he comments lightly. Effie talk to you? Yes, I know, I say, rolling my eyes and putting on a fake capital accent. Sit up straight, mind your manners, your mentor's rude enough for both of you, make 12 look good for once. Haymitch lets out a snort of laughter, clearly not expecting that answer, and then gives me a little nod that I return. Totally innocent if anyone listens in, but enough for him to know I understand what's going on. I wait nervously, the booming of the anthem and Caesar's voice filling my ears as the others are introduced. My sweet, clueless prep team, the only ones who will be able to enjoy this. I envy their strange innocence. Then Effie. She should be happy, she and Haymitch have finally gotten a kid out alive. Instead, she must be worried. At least she's practiced in putting on a convincing show, not something that can be said for me. I hear the audience scream as Sinner is introduced. His dazzling designs gave me the attention and sponsors I'd never have survived without. And then Haymitch steps onto the stage for the first time since he became the victor of his own games. And then, much too soon, I am lifted up on the metal plate and into blinding light. It's so reminiscent of entering the arena that I just stand there frozen for a few seconds, my hands shaking and my eyes darting across the colourful Capitol audience, almost expecting a mutt to jump out from between them. But they are cheering and I realize that I'm not in the games anymore and that I have a far different, yet probably not any less dangerous game to play. I smile and wave and blow kisses and giggle as best I can manage, relieved when Haymitch finally puts a gentle hand on my shoulder and nods towards the ornate chair I'll spend the next few hours in. My relief doesn't last long when I remember what is about to happen. The replay of the so-called highlights of the last few weeks. Caesar gives my hand a quick squeeze as the lights dim and the seal appears on the screen and I find myself thinking once again that he must really want to help the tributes and victors. The replays always tell a story of sorts, giving the victor a certain image, underlining what the Capitol wants them to be. I'm not sure what they are trying to make me, though. Everything on that screen before me seems not real and at the same time much too real. They play up Peter's love for Katniss and even Cato and Clove right from the start and I'm beginning to see that this time, it's not about presenting the victor in any way at all. They are just trying to justify the last 3 deaths in their scheme. It was never meant to happen like that, 3 strong audience favorites dying by their own hands. They hide their intentions cleverly, seemingly adding the pair from 2 in only where it relates to me, Clove saving Cato from the fire that my friends and I got caught in as well. The heart-wrenching scenes after our tracker-jacker attacks where Cato clings to Clove as if someone might take her away, Clove screaming for Cato after Thresh tore her off me. I'd gladly let them show only the careers, but unfortunately, as victor, the lion's share of the recap is still devoted to me. So I have to watch myself, with Rue, with Amber, with Peter, happy and joking and hugging and laughing and safe and sound and so alive, only to watch all 3 of them die. It's strange, because it seems like something that happened years ago to someone I've never met and yet, at the same time, I am reliving it as if I am caught in those moments forever. I watch my on-screen double sing for Rue, my own, real lips soundlessly moving to every word of the lullaby. The blonde girl in the recap is not allowed to lay flowers on her friend. Maybe that would make us too human. Make them forget we're not just playthings for their entertainment. I'm filled with terror and yet so much pride as Amber, quicker than the careers could react, slices a deep gash into Cato's leg, flinging a handful of dirt into the wound before they stop her. So smart until the very end. Without the feast, infection would have taken Cato just as easily as Peter. I see Thresh die and the boy from 9 succumb to a wound Cato dealt before running to Clove's aid. And then the mutts come and Cato and Clove die and Peter knocks me out and then he's on the ground and his cannon sounds and the girl looks confused as she's lifted away. And as I stare at that pale, dirt and blood-caked face on the screen, I remember why I have that look of utter confusion painted on my face. Peter should not have died that quickly. The Capitol cheated me, and not just with revoking their rule. But then it's over and I can't dwell on the arena any longer because President Snow is coming to crown me. He smiles as he settles the crown on my head, but there's something calculating in his eyes. It's as if he's trying to decide if I am to be considered a danger. Thank you, President Snow, I manage. It's an honor, sir. Surely mine, Miss Everdeen, he replies, his look softening somewhat. But that might just mean he's decided on how and when I'll die. Much bowing and cheering follows. My arm is about to fall off from waving when Caesar Flickerman finally bids the audience goodnight, reminding them to tune in tomorrow for the final interviews. As if they have a choice. I am whisked to the president's mansion for the victory banquet. Effie doesn't stray far from my side, whispering name and status to me for everyone who approaches. Her game maker friend, Celeste Horan, comes by teary-eyed and hugs me. Strangers have their picture taken with me. All I want is to get some food and be left alone. for everyone to stop acting as if it's some achievement that I'm still standing here. Someone gives a little fake cough behind me, soft and high. I turn to find a girl of maybe 9 or 10, beaming at me, her hands fidgeting nervously, suddenly blurting Cassandra's no, hi. Grandfather, let me come meet you. Hello, I reply, smiling genuinely for the first time in what feels like forever. Even though not that much younger than me, the girl reminds me rather of Posey in her demeanor. I suppose that's what a carefree childhood might do to you. Primrose Everdeen. I know that, of course, she says, and I smile. Of course. Well, good to meet you, Cassandra. I like your hair. She blushes betrayed, tugging at the end of one of her braids, which are clearly designed after mine. Thank you. Do you want to have some cake with me? I make my excuses to Effie, who in turn makes them to the people waiting to meet me, and finally get my hands on some food. With the president's granddaughter there, no one dares interrupt my eating. I sent a whole month's allowance to your mentor, Cassandra tells me, beaming with pride. My brothers and cousins said it was a waste of money and you were going to die, seeing how you are so young, but I said to them, I said, well, I'm younger than you all and I say she'll win. And you did. Thanks to sponsors like you, I reply, who recognize ability when they see it. I wouldn't stand here otherwise, enjoying such lovely cake and company. The girl's very sweet, oddly enough, and I continue chatting with her for quite some time, nonetheless carefully considering every word. The walls have eyes and ears here. We even have some chocolate fondue, as she remembers from my interview that I like it. Cassandra, I told you not to bother Miss Everdeen for so long. President Snow cuts in after a while. I just about managed to stifle a yelp of surprise at his sudden proximity. It's past your bedtime, your mother will have my head. Off you go. And that concludes the pleasant part of the evening, as I am now dragged from one important Capitolite to the next once more. When I'm finally allowed to leave, I'm utterly exhausted but afraid to go to bed. It will be my first sleep since the arena that isn't induced by medicine, and I'm terrified of what my dreams might bring. Effie, clearly noting my anxious behavior, sets me down for a glass of warm milk with honey before walking me to my room and tucking me into bed. I call after her as she turns to leave. Would you maybe stay? I always crawl into bed with Mum when I have bad dreams, her warmth makes the nightmares go away. Effie only smiles and nods, and so I can go to sleep safely, huddled up against her. I wake up from a faint tapping sound at my door. I listen for another sound whilst slowly becoming aware of my surroundings. I find myself still curled up against Effie, much like I was when I fell asleep. My shirt's stuck to my skin with half-dried sweat, and I vaguely remember waking up multiple times throughout the night, but I can't quite recall what I dreamed and am glad for that. Deciding I must have imagined the knock, I close my eyes again, only for the knocking to become louder. The doors opened a few seconds later and Haymitch flicks on the light. I blink against the sudden brightness as Effie throws a hand over her eyes with a groan. My mentor only smiles at the sight of us curled up together, grumpy at being woken. You'd better get up, princess, kiddo. After it's a big day. Right, F's. Effie's up in an instant, bustling about and organizing everything by the time I make it out of my room for breakfast, yawning and rubbing my eyes. Definitely too early. I'll never understand how she can be this active this early. Then again, Katniss goes hunting at the crack of dawn. I've barely eaten anything when the prep team shows up. Flavius and Octavia immediately want to start getting me ready, but Venia is luckily more perceptive, indicating my almost full plate. Let her eat. We can't have her dropping off stage, can we? I smile and nod my thanks. The audience loved you yesterday, I remark before digging in while they chatter on and on in absolute excitement. Once I'm done eating, I let them primp me as they see fit until Cinna shows up. He dresses me in a light blue dress and matching shoes. At first I think the dress is all frills and lace, but then I realize I'm wrong. It's entirely made of cloth primroses that look so real I actually am tempted to smell them. It's beautiful, I tell him, and I really mean it. Then it's almost time for the interview, which takes place in the sitting room with only a few cameras watching. Caesar Flickerman hugs me tightly as I enter. Congratulations, Primrose. How are you? Just a bit nervous about the interview, I admit. Smiling and looking adorable was one thing, actually speaking is something entirely else. What if I somehow anger Snow? He pats my cheek gently. You'll do fine. I promise, nothing you say will be wrong. I can only hope that's true. Someone counts backward and just like that, we're being broadcast live to the entire country. Caesar Flickerman is wonderful, teasing, joking, getting choked up when the occasion presents itself. I try to go along with it as best I can manage, considering I have really no idea what they want from me. Someone no one could view as a danger, Effie said. But how exactly would I ever be viewed as a danger by Snow? Not even knowing that, I can't exactly do the opposite. So I just try to sound pro-capital without sounding pro-games, as that would disgust me too much and everyone could easily see right through me. I'm not exactly the best liar. I praise Sinner, Fe, the clothes I've been given, the food and thank all my sponsors whatever I can honestly say that the capital will likely enjoy hearing. Who is your favorite victor, dear? Caesar asks finally, as he does all fresh victors. I'm relieved to know the interview is almost over, but realize I have no idea how to answer. Most victors joke about it being themselves or just throw out a random name, some answer the capital will like. I consider saying Johanna Mason, the girl with the brilliant strategy and the deadly axe. Finicadair, whose status as youngest victor I usurped. Inoberia Sevina, who is undeniably a capital favorite. Or maybe another outer district kid like me who won against all the odds. Before I can decide what Snow might want to hear, what my team wants me to say, what is the right answer, I already find a name tumbling from my lips. Annie Crester. There's a few seconds of complete silence that seem to last forever. Caesar, so practiced in this, seems taken aback. Annie Crester. The unspoken words hang between us heavily, easily guessed. The poor, mad girl. The tribute who won by being the best swimmer. Who only killed people by dragging them deeper when they tried to drown her. The woman from 4 who isn't a career. The victor who barely counts as a victor. Favorite victor, Annie Crester. But it's hardly as if I can take it back now that it's been said, so I nod with a smile. Yes, Annie Crester. We're alike, she and I. We won by outlasting the competition. And Caesar, bless him, chuckles as if that were the best answer I could have possibly given and I'm so thankful I could kiss him. That man is an absolute blessing. Caesar signs off and I'm finally free to say my goodbyes to my prep team, Sinner and Portia, and I'm off. Once we're on the train, Effie hands me a neatly wrapped package. I thought it best to keep it for you until the cameras were gone. I open it and find my Mockingjay pin and the portrait of Amber that Peter made for me. The weeping mess I am reduced to for the next few hours proves her judgment to be sensible. The rest of the journey passes me by in an absolute blur. I think there's food at some point. Hey, Mitch must have carried me to bed because I can't remember going there. I wake up screaming, Effie never leaves my side. I couldn't really say how long I'm on the train, it all melts together. Then we're finally pulling into District 12. I completely forget about the cameras the second I step off the train, jumping out as soon as it stops and searching the crowd for my loved ones. Rory is first to reach me and I fling myself into his arms, letting him lift me off my feet and twirl me around, his laughter filling my ears as giggles spill from my mouth. He has barely set me down when Katniss already embraces me, crying and laughing at the same time, and then Mum's there, peppering kisses on my face and pulling both me and Katniss into her arms. Over her shoulder, I can see Livia and Estelle rushing to meet me hand in hand, bright smiles on their faces, Vic not far behind with Posey on his back. I'm home.